Okay. Hello, and welcome to the Cursed Podcast 2001.
Are we gonna test all the levels first?
No, it works, Johnny. It just works.
works.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello. Testing. 1, 2, 3. Does everyone want to speak again?
We're back, I think.
Yeah.
Nice.
Alright, let me listen to that again, because I'm in a new place.
Open the door just so it doesn't get too bright. Cool.
So it's funky in here.
Hello and welcome.
Just do the same thing again.
You know this is what's staying in. My new policy is I'm not editing.
You send it to me.
It's more funny though. Come on. 2001 was a great movie. It's also a great year. Although it's a bit cursed because it's taken us so fucking long, because of many reasons we won't go into now. It's finally here. So I had the picks. Before that, we've got to do the honorable mentions in Johnny's TV Roundup. It's been a while, boys.
Yeah.
Every time I forget about the preamble.
The preamble's now just the bits that we don't edit out. Alright. Tony, you picked your favourite film, Spirited Away.
I picked the film that I'm gonna watch on the worst day of my life. When I have it, Ethan's lent it to me, so hopefully the worst day of my life is coming up soon.
I do like the idea that the film will. I can't remember who said it. I think it was. I might have been Ethan. But the film is just really bad, and then it makes your day worse.
Yeah, I think it probably was.
Well,
But it's perfect. It's Spirited Away. It's essentially my get out of jail free card with you. If I ever do something terrible, like if I ever kill your family for whatever reason, I would say, hey, take on the bright side. Spirited Away, it's right here.
If I had missed the train, I would have calmed down by watching Spirited Away.
Yeah.
The people who've seen Spirited Away, can you talk about Spirited Away without mentioning the plot? Because I actually don't want to know. We're talking about very vague terms.
Yeah, we can talk about it. So, Spirited Away is about this young girl who moves house, and as they're getting to the house, they decide to take a shortcut through a forest.
Ethan,
And
fucking with me. They're taking a shortcut through Grenfell Park at midnight because it's the more scenic route.
I mean, I can't remember whatever reason it is. It might be because it was more scenic. Yeah. But essentially, what happens is they end up coming across this massive abandoned amusement park, in a sense, and she's still there with her parents, and they find this stall that's selling food, but like I said, the park is abandoned. There's no one there. It's completely deserted, and she leaves them temporarily for a second as they start eating away on the food, and then she comes back to them 5 minutes later, and instead of her parents being there, these massive fat pigs are there instead.
And the flag's unrolled and it says, trample the bourgeoisie.
Yeah, and essentially she has to spend the rest of the film trying to turn her parents back into humans, and by doing this she has to get a job at the local bathhouse. And the town itself is inhabited by spirits, in a sense. And the spirits, I mean, this is one of the. We're going to do the Hayao Miyazaki rundown of what makes this film so great. The animation, the music. But I mean, what makes this film and all the Ghibli films fantastic is just, I mean, the large range of different designs for each and every spirit. And some of them are
you've
just
got
outstanding.
Dr. Eggman breeding with a spider. It's
Yeah. But it's fantastically well done. All of that. I mean, the guy has just one of the best imaginations working in film, I think. So that's Spirited Away, and you definitely should watch it. I mean, it consistently ranks as being one of, if not the best animated film of all time. I certainly think it is one of them. I know, Jonathan, disappointed might be a strong word, but I know you didn't like it as much. I think.
I was expecting more than what I was given, but it was good. It was the first time I watched it. I came in halfway through, just saw the end, being completely confused by this world, and I think it was in a way disappointing to then have it all become grounded.
I understand that. I mean, I still feel like with that from a lot of Miyazaki's films, they don't. Grounded I get, but they still don't kind of try and explain the magic. They kind of just show it to you, if that makes sense. And you can just be in complete awe of it without having the need for them to go down and talk about Oh god, what is it? It's what nanoscience, nanoparticles lifting the things up in
They don't
Bioshock
talk about
Infinite.
midichlorians.
Midichlorians. What are they called? In Bioshock Infinite.
What are they called? It's quantum particles or something dumb.
Yes,
Something pointless.
It's like, just let us watch this world. You don't really need to explain what's making it move. Just let us have a look at it. And that's what I like about those films. So, yeah.
So on a scale from Ponyo to Princess Mononoke in terms of spirit versus whatever our other opposite of spirit was.
Authoritarian?
Authoritarian.
Where's libertarian on this?
How child friendly is it? Is it good?
Child friendly. Well, that's the thing with
I mean,
these
in
films.
Princess Mononoke is pretty child friendly, even though you see multiple arms be ripped
off.
off.
But see, that's the thing. I feel like if you take a Pixar film, that really is child friendly. The Spirited Away.
No, there's a Pixar film.
Don't lead into it. I still have something to say over it. I still feel Spirited Away is a good example because I watched that film for the first time when I was really, really young, and the pigs especially. Really, I think they do traumatise you because I mean they are disgusting to look at and they are so scary. It's the idea of leaving your parents for a second, coming back and they're just pigs. So I wouldn't watch it for a long time.
I remember when watching it with you. So it feels like you still haven't got over those pigs. It's
no, I still think
haunts
of
you
it
to
like
this
PTSD.
day.
Yeah. But those are those films. There's still something. Maybe edgy is the wrong word, but they're not entirely child friendly. I mean, I still think a kid could watch them and they'd have a great time. But there is
this one to me feels the most friendly of the ones. There's no conflict.
It's a bit darker
really.
than Ponyo. I mean, Ponyo has no threat in it at all. It's just a.
In Ponyo, the world floods. In this one, just daily life in the spirit world kind of happens for the most part.
There's also a spirit that walks around gobbling up people. Yeah. That's kind of
he
scary.
Is terrifying.
The design of the witch who runs the bathhouse. I mean, with her massive crooked nose and just her accentuated facial features. I mean, that can be a bit off as well when you're quite young. Don't you think?
I guess it's got a malign terror to it, but yeah.
You'd be hard pressed to find something more not terrifying than Ponyo.
But Ethan, do you think that when you were getting scared by Spirited Away, your fear was being used as energy to power a city of monsters? Yeah.
Oh,
I couldn't get it.
Here we go.
Yeah, no, I do remember. I think the night that I watched it, I was sleeping and the door opens and just this one-eyed monster, completely green in the shape of the massive sphere, just walks in and tries to scare me.
Good film monsters then. Smart honorable mention. It was going to be the beginning, but
Johnny was like a minute ago.
Yeah, Johnny gave it up. So I'll happily sweep in and say Monsters Inc. A childhood favourite. Went back and revisited it. It's probably my third favourite Pixar film now. It's really good. Holds up. Very weird concept. Billy Crystal is a one-eyed alien that fucks Medusa and lives with John Goodman. It's a very odd concept for a film, but yeah, it works because it's a Pixar film. You know I like Pixar. Solid, nice.
Yeah,
is that all you're going to say about it?
Yeah, I don't want to spend too long because we do have to do 2 podcasts.
Fair enough.
1.5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. Don't ruin the illusion.
You're the one that left all the secrets at the beginning.
I can't think of any transition from that, but I picked Royal Tenenbaums because it's Wes Anderson. I don't think I've seen something yet of his that I haven't loved. So yeah, it's just another Wes Anderson, and it's just great. Not as good as Grand Budapest, I'd say, but it's great.
Have you seen Isle of Dogs?
Not yet.
Okay. Fair enough.
It's not that great. It's pretty good.
So, is that... do you want to say anything else about it?
This is great.
Gene Hackman's really good in it. That's right, Gene Hackman from The French Connection.
Damn.
It's another of those things where it's just like Wes has just managed to gather every actor you've ever heard of.
Yeah, he's good with cast lists. He doesn't pick bad actors as well. They're always just really good and they suit his films so well, I think.
I just the way he makes everything look, basically, and just this is a real, again, like how I found with Grand Budapest Hotel. It's just a very sort of heartfelt story, basically, in a weird kind of I don't know. It's this weird kind of unnatural naturalism.
Yeah. Does it still hold up? As in from when we watched it together?
Yeah.
Nice. I just liked it. So yes, the honourable mention is 2001 we're doing, right? yeah. It's Training Day, I think. So Training Day is a film that stars Ethan Hawke. And
Because you can see the natural way.
I knew that was coming. No, it's Ethan Hawke and
his brother.
He's supposed to swim faster than him.
Guys, we're doing Gattaca. That's just.
I mean, it'll probably be an honourable mention for 97
It
or
is.
whatever. It is it, yeah.
Oh.
So Training Day is a film that stars Ethan Hawke and Denzel Washington. And it's set over the course of about a day. I think it is like 24 hours, something like that. And Ethan Hawke plays a rookie cop, and I think it's maybe one of his first few days, and he's just been assigned pretty much. And Denzel Washington is shown in the ropes just for a day. And as the film goes on, Ethan Hawke, who is this kind of a lot more honourable, well-natured cop, has to watch this guy who's meant to be taking orders from be quite corrupt, I suppose. And I think Denzel Washington won an Oscar for that film, actually, Best Actor, and he deserves it because he's really, really good in it. And it's been a while since I saw it, but I remember thinking it was a good couple of hours. But having said that, it is a 7 out of 10, so I probably wouldn't recommend it to anyone. Yeah, that's what I've got to say about it. Good film, no, good film.
Alright.
I think my pick for this film, my pick for this year probably would have been Mulholland Drive, actually, because I'd like to have talked about that and why it didn't resonate with me in the way that I thought it would. But Mulholland Drive is such a well-known film, I thought maybe I'd pick something a little less known, which is what I've been trying to do for honourable mentions these past few years.
Alright, so Johnny's TV Roundup is again a thing that Ethan's going to talk about for
Yeah,
us.
I was gonna say,
He loves this.
Is it Samurai Jack?
Yeah. So I've only seen the odd episode of this, so this one just is Ethan's pick.
Yeah, no, it is, I think. Samurai Jack, Jesus Christ, what a good show. So this is probably we did for a few others more recently, actually. I think it's on the same scale of nostalgia. I sometimes go back and rewatch episodes of this, my favourite ones, and it just reminds me of how much I love this show. Growing up, how there isn't a single bad episode. So Samurai Jack is essentially, when I start talking about the storyline for this show, I always end up talking for about 10 minutes. But basically, I'll try and keep it simple. It's about a young boy who when he's very young has his entire city burned by this mythical creature called Aku, and he grows up he goes back to try and vanquish Aku to get revenge on what he did. And at the last second, before he's about to kill him, Aku opens up a portal and sends Jack far into the past. His reasoning behind that being that in the future, sorry, did I say past? I did say past, didn't I? Sorry. Yes, he sends him into the future. And Aku's reasoning behind that is that in the future he's a lot more stronger, he's got a lot more of an empire. If Jack comes back to try and kill him, it'll be a lot more difficult for him to. And that's essentially what it is. It's 4 seasons in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. And each episode is pretty much just its own little adventure in a sense. Basically, you're in the future, so you see this world that I'm not gonna lie, I think he's called Tarkovsky, the creator of the show Jendi Tarkovsky, something like that. And so you have a little adventure here and there, and then every now and then there is an episode which is about him going to see Aku, and Aku just at the last minute, so Jack can't kill him. But Jack's main goal is to get back to the past again. So he looks around for these portals, and in a lot of episodes he finds a portal, but again there is something that means he can't do it. It'll be like he'll be escorted by 2 Buddhist monks, and he's at the portal, but the Buddhist monks are getting killed behind him, and the portal's about to close, but he doesn't want the monks to die, so he goes back and helps them, and then sacrifices that opportunity. And that's what essentially it is for 4 series. And they did a 5th series very recently, I think last year or 2 years ago, and it wasn't quite as good as the first series, the first 4. I mean, it started off pretty well, and then it kind of got a bit ridiculous, and the ending was so rushed. And I kind of just wish they'd just left it as it was, because with the original 4th series, they never actually finished it off. He never got back to the past. He never finished off Aku. So there's that. Last thing I'll say really quickly. It's probably the show that I think does tension and suspense much better than most shows in it, and being a cartoon as well, I think that's really quite impressive. The episodes that I have shown you guys, that episode with the 3 blind archers is fantastic. The episode where I think I showed Jonathan this one, the one where they're waiting in a cabin for Jack to walk past, and they're talking about how to stop him, to capture him in. And I mean, just all of these, I think back, and these storylines, just individual episodes, are things that I feel would really influence me and give me ideas in the years to come for stories to do in my own writing. So it really has had an impact on me. Yeah. Samurai Jack, ladies and gentlemen. It's a 9 out of 10, so I would recommend it.
Stop this. I'm ready for recording that bit.
Yeah, it has got a great art style to it from the bits I've seen. And it sort of reminds me of Adventure Time in the sort of way. It's a children's show, but so much more.
Yeah, no, definitely. I completely agree with you. And I've also shown you that one section where he's fighting a ninja, and then he's in a warehouse, and then it changes between black and white to have the contrast, and that's fantastic. So much so that I got a T-shirt because of it as well, that I'm not wearing right now, but I kind of wish I was.
And speaking of, what was it? Was it a T-shirt or was it your phone background?
It was a T-shirt, and yes.
Yeah, you were like, Tony, I bet you 20 British pounds that you do not know the show that is referenced by my T-shirt. And I was just like, Samurai Jack.
Yeah, how did you know that?
Because I'd seen the show.
Really?
Yeah.
So you'd seen episodes of it?
I'd seen like a couple episodes, yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, it's very good. It does, I don't know, I wouldn't say suffer is a strong word, but because it's, aired for children, a lot of the bad guys are, robots that just sort of explode, and I'm like, man, would be cool if he just cut someone's head off at some point. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
But other than that, the animation's
The
really
blood
good.
and gore.
Yeah, I mean, come on, when you've got a samurai show, cutting people up, that's kind of what you want. But I'll accept it as it is. It's very good, very fun.
It's also the same writer as the original Clone Wars TV show as well, and I think you can definitely tell if you watch both of them. Similar art style, like you say, and it's a similar good understanding of what creates good tension. Actually, I think really, really good. It's the I won't talk about it for very much longer. But it's also the soundscape you get with the warehouse in particular. He knows how to. Well, there are moments where it's very, very quiet and completely silent, and then there'll be a rush of energy, a rush of action very, very quickly, and it'll be quite loud, and then it'll go back to silent. It just kind of builds and builds and builds, and then it releases. That's what I think he does so well. And the surroundings always help with that as well. Really, really good show.
Alright.
So, are we leading into your first pick then, Harry?
Yeah, why not? Alright. So before I get into the context behind it, I'll say to just this, Tony, if I mess up, I need you to stop me. I've been going to this podcast knowing that you know a lot more about this first pick than I do.
You finally usurped me after I had honorable mentioned Halo so many times, and then finally you snuck out from under me and grabbed out Halo CE.
Halo Combat Evolved. So this game was developed by Bungie. Initially, I think it was meant to be like a third-person exploration game for Apple.
Yeah.
And then they were acquired by Microsoft. Changed the game to a first-person perspective. Kind of just from the sounds of it, they accidentally kind of stumbled across the first-person shooter template, which is still being copied today. They kind of it's a game which is kind of inspired pretty much everything. Like a lot of this podcast is going to be similar to when I picked COD 4, because in the way that COD 4 kind of influenced, came out the same year as Halo actually, Halo 3 actually, which is interesting. I think it kind of took over the mantle of what first-person shooter design was. But it kind of influenced first-person shooter design, and it made first-person shooters work on console. So the features like the soft lock, which is similar to what Nintendo did with Super Mario 64 and like the imprecise platforming, because they realized that to do these kind of things on controllers, you need leeway. The AI was incredibly intelligent for the time, hadn't really been seen before, and also just a first-person shooter that kind of, from its second level, the way it opens up and the fact that the game is initially going to be something else, like really kind of shows that in a good way. Obviously, we'll probably get onto the story. This is a bit like Lord of the Rings, and I love the original Halo trilogy. I think they're all fantastic games. They're all got flaws, but they're all really great. But I'm not that invested in the lore and the story like Lord of the Rings. I just think they're very well made films and games. So I know Tony's a bigger fan than me, so he'll definitely expand more. But yeah, Halo 3 was the first one that I got, and then replaying them. The first time I played this game, I thought it was slightly dated in some of its level design. But then on my second playthrough, which I played a very long time ago for this podcast, because this one's been brewing for a while, I kind of it hit me just how influential it's been, and it's just a great game. It's just I think what are we 18 years past since Halo. The fact that its kind of design philosophy has seeped over into pretty much every first-person shooter since then. Yeah, the game still holds up. It's still really fun to play, and it's still one of my favorite first-person shooters. So, who am I going to pass it? I mean, Tony's the easy one.
Okay.
Tony, talk about Halo.
So, for those of you that don't know, Halo is this big green guy.
That's Mr. Xbox.
Mr. Xbox.
Zelda.
So, alright. The real Halo is obviously the namesake stolen from the books Ringworld. So, I say stolen, inspired by this massive artifact that is found in space, which is this sort of donut-shaped like thing with metal on one side and this lush landscape on the inside, and this UNSC spaceship, the Pillar of Autumn, fleeing a Covenant fleet or following a Covenant fleet, or one or the other. They just stumble upon it, and they crash land, and Master Chief who is the main guy, of course, on the cover, along with his AI friend Cortana, have to discover the mystery of what this ring does and what mysteries stuck in the ring. Where'd it come from? What's it gonna do? That's what the campaign is. And
Keep it secret. Keep it safe.
yeah, imagine if it just had one ring to rule them all, and in the darkness bind them.
Just
whatever.
a giant Gandalf shows up.
No, like a human picks the ring up and it shrinks down to ring size.
You guys are coming up with more similarities between these two trilogies. I mean, I've got enough of them already. Oh, wait, one more thing. This is going to be very similar to the COD 4 thing, in which we're going to keep referencing this omnipotent multiplayer mode, which again is hard to experience now. I mean, I know you can play it on the Master Chief Collection.
I think the Master Chief Collection works pretty well now, it being 5 years after its release.
I thought you were saying being now, and then you were checking the exact time on your.
I thought my date had the year on it, but it doesn't.
It was kind of a big breakthrough for I think a lot of Halo LAN parties took place at the time, and obviously Xbox Live wouldn't come out until the release of Halo 2. But the original Halo kind of pushed the boundary on what multiplayer could do, and it's kind of, I think it was one of those things a bit like Doom that kind of just took off in Quake, and really kind of pushed the industry forward. Like both my picks, Silent Hill 2 and Halo, I like for completely the opposite reasons. And I love Silent Hill 2. I love how left behind almost all of its design philosophy is. Like literally nothing from that game you can find in modern games. Whereas everything from Halo was taken, but it still does it better than most. So
because I think the core of Halo has probably been said a lot by other people, but it's just the core what Bungie I think called the 30-second loop, which is basically the game. The entire 10-hour campaign is centered. You are like the Master Chief. You have shields, and if your shields run out and then your health runs out, then you die. But you have to kill enemies, and you kill enemies by throwing grenades, punching them, shooting them. And if you shoot people, eventually you run out of ammo and you have to reload or find another gun. And basically the entire game is just understanding those few small mechanics and just learning them, how to apply them in new situations, and how they work together and how they bounce off each other, and how it sort of has this solid foundation, which it then finds new ways to apply to new scenarios in a way that is just you feel like you get better at it over time, which is something I think is important for all games. And I think it just is really fun at its core to just do the simple things in this game. Thanks to its sound design, it's great. I think loads of the weapons still look really good.
It sounds so good as well.
Yeah.
I love the sound that obviously you don't have the battle rifle in this game, which is the best sound of all time. But so many of the guns, they sound weighty. and they give the chief like a greater presence.
Yeah,
It's funny hearing you talk about these really simple mechanics in a game like this, and how I think when I hear you talk about the idea of someone walking around, they have a finite amount of bullets in a weapon and they have to reload, it just sounds like something that's so obvious. and just hearing you talk about a game establishing this, and then how it kind of influenced games after that is just really quite incredible.
I love the fact that obviously the 30 seconds of fun thing is like probably the biggest point, because obviously like if you just if that little loop is fun of just killing an enemy, then again and again it will be fun. But like the fact that in like games like Quake and Doom, you could carry as many guns as you want. So the game, you'd essentially never be short on ammo. It would always just be like finding different combinations for different enemies. Whereas Halo is similar to that, but by limiting the amount of ammo you can carry, like you can swap between two weapons by hitting the Y button, which is still every game still has that. You switch to your pistol, it's faster than reloading. But the fact that it kind of gives you this limited amount of ammo means that you have to kind of be very adaptable. Yeah. And the Master, okay, I'm just gonna say the Master Chief it's just a big brick. He doesn't have a character.
For a brick, he flew pretty good, Harry. Yeah, it's the opening of Halo 2.
I mean,
well, he's not the sharpest tool in the box.
So yeah, 343 guilty spark tricks him into almost killing everyone.
Yeah, he does almost wipe out all sentient life in 2,500 light years or something.
But it's almost the power fantasy of just being incredibly competent at everything. Like the Master Chief is so good at like everything. It would take like 25 Covenant enemies with 3 vehicles. Like half of them are on turrets to even have a chance of taking him out. He will just pick up every weapon. And he can pilot every vehicle.
Would it be fair to say that he's the John Wayne of the sci-fi genre?
He's a John Wayne.
My favourite skill of Master Chief is that he thinks cars have the steering wheel on the other side than they actually do. So, my favourite move he's always pulling is going in on the passenger side, sitting there for a second and going, wait a moment.
And sometimes he mistakes the turret on the top of the car for the steering wheel as well.
I didn't have that as much. My favourite moment playing this was I flipped the car whilst driving it with 2 other people. And then the car crushed me and killed me. But the 2 other guys were still fine. They just stood there, and then there was a pause, and one of them just said, "Well, what now?" Which is one of the best moments of comedy I have ever heard in a game.
I think this. We'll get into the story, but Bungie have a sense of humour, and that's seeped in through a few places. Later games have a skull called the IWHYBD skull, which stands for like, I think it references a quote I think Sergeant Johnson says, which we'll get to him later because he's incredible.
Sergeant Dude.
It's the I would have been your daddy, but a dog beat me over the fence. It's just one of the lines he says. And there are other, if you equip that skull, which is like a modifier you can select in the missions.
They're quite fun. They just make the game ridiculous.
Yeah,
I love that that's
they make the game stupid fun. And it makes just your NPCs and like enemies just say like ridiculously stupid things all the time. It's really funny. But yeah, I think there's a lot of good NPC dialogue as well.
I mean, the fact that like the enemy AI is brilliant, but like the fact that they have these commanders, and then when the commanders die, you have like the tiny aliens.
Yeah,
they're incredibly incompetent. And, like,
well, one of
run the second their commander's kind of killed.
Because I enjoyed the start of this game, and I think it has a pretty great.
The cold open. I do like the cold opening that you're just in this ship and everything's going to shit.
And it does a very good job of like suggesting what you should do basically without coming up with a pop-up that tells you how to do.
Funneling you.
And one of the bits that I think is probably the best is the bit where one of those big grunts gets destroyed in an explosion, and then you just see all the little ones just run around, and then that's when you realise, take out the leader first.
Yeah.
And the rest do that.
It's kind of obviously Breath of the Wild came years later, but Breath of the Wild, Nintendo's design for that was create everything should have a response to something, and then if we create all these systems that kind of just individual systems that interact with each other in different ways, and then put them out in the world, then essentially they can experiment. Like, it's not like the enemies are scripted. They're placed, but they're not scripted to do certain things. If you die, you might do the same encounter 3-4 times, and the enemy might try 3 or 4 different tactics. because they've essentially designed the AI with certain like how depending on difficulty as well, like how aggressive they're going to be, what guns they have, you know, like what they'll try and do to you basically. And you can kind of play around once you figure out, you can play around with it. I'd say it falters a tiny bit there, but like the fact that they've kind of created this AI is so intelligent, that they kind of it's not scripted. Like you'll get some great moments of comedy and great moments of like heroism just because of like something the AI does, or like something that like suddenly like your guys are pinned down. Also, you just have guys with you. I mean, they normally die. It doesn't matter. Like Captain Keyes and like the sergeant can just die on missions and then come back in cutscenes. Yeah.
My favourite bit was when I rescued whatever the big one in charge was, and then I just took out my sniper rifle, pointed at his head, and just shot him in the head. And I got on. I was like, "Oh no, the captain's dead." The game ends.
Your teammates will say like, "Oh, Chief's gone rogue." If you try and kill,
yeah, they do. Try
they'll kill you. They'll do loads of damage.
I do.
Funny.
Because like obviously we'll touch upon the story. It's got some great moments of story, but the one thing to remember is that it's very tongue in cheek. It doesn't take itself seriously at all. In a similar way to The Sims 1, where The Sims 1 was satire, and then The Sims 2 and 3, and then they became the thing they were taking the piss out of, basically. I think Halo kind of suffers from that a little bit, whereas it's not so much the actual narrative of the game that interests me, it's the narrative that you create for yourself. It's it being in these scenarios and like the cool way you'll take down a ship, or like it's less free than, but for the time, for a first-person shooter, the freedom it gave you, like the mission where you're just storming a beach suddenly, and it's kind of like the different ways you can approach it, I think was very ahead of its time. Like,
and that's not the only thing that's great for its time. One of the things that I had a lot of fun with during this game was that I started off and I said, well, this is a game of 2001, I'm going to play it with the original graphics. And then I swapped over to the new graphics and I was like, oh, this is so much nicer. I'm just going to stick with these. I thought so, but then as the game went on, I just kind of interchanged between the two just to see how far we've come. And I mean, it looks better now, I think, but even back then, it felt like it was ahead of its time. I played some games from around that era; they all look kind of crap, and that looks pretty. It looks pretty good. Like the graphics look. Well, I mean, everything's just kind of competently done, and it's not. It also.
I think it's got this like Prometheus problem of like the having Halo Reach. They tried to make it look like Halo Reach, but so I think they've kind of sacrificed some of the original's aesthetic. Like the missions at night, which are kind of more atmospheric. When you play them on the new graphics, they're not dark anymore. They're suddenly they kind of sacrifice some of the atmosphere for just pretty.
But that mission that you do, which is the Moria mission, when you start off in the jungle with the original graphics, it kind of just looks like a brown ground and then a couple of trees. But you sit to new ones, it's like a vivid forest come to life with all the. It's got the rain, and everything just looks extremely colourful and fluorescent, and it just looks really beautiful. I think. Yeah. So I did like certain ones, but then there was some I don't mind. There was the one where
in that mission, like you're finding like these ancient like ships and stuff. I think they kind of, by making it pristine, it looks like a new. They make like things that should look old and decrepit and like they haven't been touched for years look shiny and brand new, like the Covenant ships. I think that's my slight problem.
I suppose so. But then there are some missions where I don't mind, and I actually changed back to when there wasn't something really, really nice to be looking at, I did switch back to the original graphics. Like that mission, I love this mission so much. But it's the one where I think, I can't remember what the character's called, but the one who betrays you. What's his name?
343 Guilty Spark.
There you go. And where you're following him around
the library.
And you've got to make it up the levels.
Yeah, I really love how certain rooms in that they're just there's this massive open like pit in the middle, and in the old school graphics everything is just this flat grey, but yet you still see get such a sense of scale, like holy fuck,
exactly,
whoever built this ring was like a serious dude,
Also the fact that any time you can just look up in the sky and see when the ring is on, which is really cool. And also I like in terms of the narrative, obviously I've said it's not that serious, but the fact that you don't really know its purpose, it's got this kind of mid-game revelation with the
There's
flood.
a good mystery.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really like the final mission, and obviously the one you mentioned, the library, I think is an atrocious level. It should be skipped at all costs.
Why?
Because it's like an hour long, and it's just the same thing. It's so repetitive, and it's challenging, but not in a fun way. It's like you're facing the same challenge repeat. I really don't like that mission.
Well, see, it's funny you say that because you say it's repetitive, and I really like that mission. But the missions that I don't like are the ones that actually do feel repetitive, where your mission is ultimately save your general.
There is the same. There is the same mission back. Yeah, I think.
But that one I don't mind because your objective changes when you replay that mission, and because it's happening backwards, and because it's in an area that's really really nice as well. Because it's a snowy area. That's the thing I really like about this game. Of course, it's like a sci-fi video game because you're on Halo, and you are in some buildings and some ships that do look very futuristic and sci-fi like, but a lot of the area that you're in is kind of just natural looking areas.
This cave system is not a natural formation, of course. Again, I think all the levels, they do a really good job of having a really unique and really good looking environment.
I don't want to be playing a sci-fi game on Coruscant. That's what I'm trying to say. I like to have natural. Yeah, it's obviously a joke. Natural formation. I like to look at trees and earth and stuff like that. And it's nice.
I think it's a really good contrast. I think it's the second mission where you just are in these natural swooping green canyons, and then there'll be this giant forerunner thing that just sends a beam up into the sky every now and then. Just holy, what does that do?
The kind of contrast between the human, the Covenant, and the Forerunner architecture is really incredible. And it's better on the graphics.
Yeah,
I'm sticking by that.
The last mission. My problem with the last mission, I love the very last thing that you do. I love the fact that because it's actually quite challenging. It is
a strange note to end the game on. But there's very little driving, and then suddenly the final thing you have to do is race. The music is amazing. Don't get me wrong, but I think it works better in Halo 3.
I think it makes sense because I don't think Bungie have done. Or I don't think Halo or Bungie have a good history with traditional boss fights. So I think a race makes more sense.
That's what I was missing. I like the whole driving thing. I love the fact that you go to the bridge, the extraction point, and then you realise, oh wait, it's still not going to work because your ship crashes or whatever, and you've got another couple of minutes to get to a new place. I quite like that because you're effectively over it, and then it pulls one last stop on plan, which is quite cool. That's the thing. I was expecting a boss fight. The last thing that you do before that is you just got to blow up a few vents. It takes a minute, and then you do have a really really cool section, which I do love. I do love the whole driving. I love how it's difficult to drive the thing in the first place as well, which is what makes that kind of challenging. And where you feel like you've got all the odds stacked against you. You're against the clock. You're in a ship that's about to blow up. You've got enemies all over. You're driving in some rooms that are deliberately designed so as to not let you out of those rooms because they've got things all over the place and you've got to maneuver, and it's good. I really like it. But the boss, there should have been some alien queen.
I mean,
I don't know. I don't feel like it needs it, but
I
don't know. It probably just would have been a big bullets Bungie thing, and they wouldn't have done it that well. So the way I've seen them,
doesn't it? And that kind of sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Destiny. I don't know. They would have it probably wouldn't have fit, but I think it works really well. I mean, Halo 3 has a good boss fight, but the evil side.
I mean, you do it it's like a 2-second boss fight.
Yeah, exactly. That's what makes it good.
Yeah, because obviously the Master Chief is just the most competent guy. Music, I want to quickly say, the score is incredible. The main theme, having this kind of operatic, almost ancient kind of monkish,
Gregorian chanting.
Yeah. It's a tribal kind of sound, isn't it?
Yeah, it just really works for the game. Pretty much all the music. I think my only problem with the music is obviously this game was slightly they're pushing the boundaries of what they could do with the time, the money they have, and the technology. And some of the music gets reused when it probably shouldn't. Some of the levels get reused. But I think the scores do it kind of sets the bar for what those scores do, and Halo 2 is my favorite one.
I think the score really elevates, a lot of the scenes in the game where you're just walking along, killing some dudes, and then some sick guitar riff will come in and you fucking hell.
There was one.
Makes it feel cinematic, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's one where just some funky beat came on. I didn't even know it was in the score. I mean, this is amazing. I was killing myself to go back and hear it.
No, I played the game in just under. It was actually just over 2 days because I got to the last mission. Was like, okay, I'm gonna call it a day there because I thought I still had a ways to go. And then I wake up the next morning, I play that mission. I'm like, oh right, so the game's done then. but that theme, the
fucking incredible.
It's great. Yeah, it's so catchy. Really plants itself up there.
It really makes it it really sells the idea of I really am a big green guy going around killing every fucking dude in the entire world. You kill a lot of guys in that game. You kill like everyone.
I love because Halo 2 gives it more one-liners, whereas in this
I
game,
know. I love the
like
one-liners.
this game really makes you feel like Batman. But like the way the control scheme's laid out, it's all really simple. It's really quick to get, but like I said, the combinations, the different ways you can feel powerful when you're toggling between these different grenades, and like you can have the human guns, which are kind of high powered, but then you don't know where you're going to find the ammo unless you find like the crash ships, and the alien weapons, which are more reliable in getting ammo. As a lot of them are energy based, so you kind of pick them up and discard them. And just also some of the guns are really interesting. Like the alien with like the Needler is obviously an iconic weapon. The Halo 2 one is broken though.
Dual wield
the Needlers, like that was a good idea. Obviously we're not mentioning the best gun in any game ever, the Halo pistol. The pistol that can like 3-shot anyone.
Okay, but is it more powerful than Han Solo's pistol in Battlefront?
Oh, that is ridiculous.
Yeah,
Han Solo's one is probably up there.
I think they do a lot of really interesting things with the variety of weapons, because later first-person shooters, they will have a whole bunch of shotguns. They'll have the fucking SMG.
Halo just has the shotgun.
Yeah, it has the one. It has the rocket launcher, and that's what it is. It doesn't have like a code, even though some of them do. If you're a nerd, you remember that they have fucking designations or whatever. But just the fact that there is one shotgun that you just learned how to use over the course of the game is really good. I think that it's really interesting how the differences between the faction weapons, like how the military, the UNSC ones, the bullets are a lot faster, and the enemies use these plasma weapons that are really sort of slow, and so you learn how to like dodge the shots basically, because you can see them coming towards you.
And also the idea about having a shield as well as a health kind of means that you're encouraged to take damage in a way, because it's almost like instead of just sitting in cover, obviously you have to wait for your shield to recover. But the fact that you can take a certain amount of damage before it really counts,
it encourages you
to push. So it's almost like you have this extra protection. And the other Halo games don't have the health, do they? They just have the shields.
I've used that shield. There were some areas where I was like, nah, okay, I'm just going to run through this blindly. On certain bridges in the snowy levels, the ones really, really high up, I'm just running from one side to the next.
The checkpoint system kind of has like a risk reward thing where you can stay and slowly make your way up and fight, having checkpoints along the way to save your progress, or you can risk it and like try and get past enemies, like even on a vehicle or something, and risk like dying further ahead and then having to go all the way back because you haven't triggered the checkpoint. Sometimes you can kind of find the checkpoints, but so it's often that kind of system which encourages both kind of play styles. It's obviously got the part-times, which are bullshit.
Yeah, if you're a fucking speedrunner, you can beat, the library in under 25 minutes. Obviously, that's a Master Chief Collection thing, though.
Yeah. The Master Chief Collection, which like ruins the reveal of on the second level, that moment where you crash land and you're in this amazing place. Before the level, you have the loading screen which shows you the place you're gonna go, which isn't great.
I don't know who was playing Halo for the first time other than Ethan.
I mean, me. Master Chief Collection was the first time I've played 1 and 2.
I mean, it's been the third time it's been re-released, because it also had it had its anniversary edition 10 years after it was released, so in 2011, and then that was ported to the Master Chief Collection.
I mean, I had played Halo 3, so I did kind of know what the Halo ring was like.
Fair enough. I think I really like the Flood reveal. I think that adds a lot to the game, because just as you were starting to sort of learn and understand, like, okay, I know how to deal with jackals now. I know how to deal with elites and grunts and all those.
I hate jackals so much.
I know. The jackals are the enemies that have a shield, and so you think, okay, they'll take a lot of ammo to take the shield down, so you have to work around it. You have to think, okay.
Grenades, snipers, that kind of
grenade, or do you hit them in the hand, and then when they stagger you, hit them in the head. It's like that.
They always
two-hit combo.
I feel like they're kind of the one that disrupts my natural playstyle, because suddenly I have to. Also, just the fucking sheer amount, not in the World at War version, but just the grenades will kill you straight away. They kind of mean you can't just keep pushing, otherwise you get fucked over by them.
I do like there are certain things that are just lethal. That just if you get hit by a hunter's cannon, then you're fucked.
Yeah.
You should not be in the way of that big blue guy.
Although you can just like melt them with the pistol. That's
fair enough.
You can probably know.
You can melt everything with the pistol.
Do you know why I really like the Moria mission? Not only because it does remind me of Lord of the Rings, but because because I mean we talked about this. We talked about how you think you understand what's going on, and it throws another element into the mix and makes it a bit more kind of chaotic, which is cool. But it's the fact that you don't really know what's coming your way. You go down and meet the search team, and they're all pretty much dead. And you don't know what's caused this. And then you look at a bunch of videos in the helmet of the
really
soldiers.
love that. Jenkins, my boy.
Jenkins, yeah. And then
Better
after...
Red Faction Gorilla.
He is actually called Jenkins.
After that, you it's so great because it's kind of really quiet just for a second, and then you look at your radar and you see 100 million red dots just on the edge of it going towards you. You're like, what the fuck is coming my way? And then you look around and it's just these millions of little things, and they're really, really ugly and disgusting, which makes you killing them really fun.
The way they kind of
it's just great.
They're like popcorn.
I hate those ones. The ones
the big sack ones.
You just got to bait them into like blowing up. Just go near them and run away.
They're very funny though, because they are on my difficulty they were an instant kill if I was right next to them. So I had to the flood were like pretty lethal. Like I had to pay
Did you play on Legendary?
I played on heroic, which is the difficulty it says.
It's canon.
Yeah, it's the canon difficulty.
I think I played on normal because I'm not that good. Because even on normal I'm dying a few times.
Yeah.
It's still a challenge.
Yeah.
I think I was on normal.
I was on normal. I didn't. Last mission I put it on easy because I was like,
I mean, there was one mission where I bumped it down to normal because you fight like 4 invisible elites with energy swords, and like, how am I meant to do this?
Sucks that you can't get the energy swords in this game.
Yeah,
I kind of wiped that from my memory because I was trying to get them, and I was like, where the fuck did they go?
Because
that's a Halo 2 thing, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Which is the better game, by the way. But I do
that ending though.
I love it. It's such a meme. Halo 2 is its primary genre is comedy.
Going back to the flood reveal, I was there just waiting for the flood, and so like with the whole Jenkins watching, I was like, yeah, so the flood are coming, and I don't know, I felt the clip you watch through his helmet goes on a bit too long.
I mean, the game's doesn't have two. It's not like Metal Gear levels of cutscenes. That's like it has very few cutscenes. So having one is probably jarring.
It was a bit where I just like found a computer terminal and just kind of watched a cutscene and then looked away.
I watched a couple of those as well.
Yeah, it's like,
it was an anniversary version of the game you're playing, obviously.
I guess.
Where someone explains a bit of the backstory.
That's not canon. Master Chief is watching Bungie being like, we created this level. What am I? That's the real deal.
Bungie is the forums.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know, the flood were just, I didn't find their design that horrible. They were just funny. And just the way they jump at you is just they all just kind of floop.
I really love them.
But they are meant to be fucking hyper lethal, which they were when I was playing it. So I was like, oh fuck.
Yeah, I still think they're pretty grim to look at.
I was just walking around, just like listing lazily to the side, so they all leap and miss you by miles. And I was just
it's these little scuttly things.
It's hilarious. They all just do a leap in the air at you. You just sidestep, and just this wave just comes crashing down. Just like, okay. And I was there going, right, I don't want to waste my ammo on them. I imagine I just need to leave this room and go. So I spent like 2 minutes just running around that room, just as this wave just goes floop floop before anything else showed up. And so that just, to me, just completely, they just weren't. Even when they started killing me, when you bump into the tougher ones, just from that point, those were just so benign and so funny.
I mean, there's a difference between feeling threatened by them and feeling really creeped out by them. And the little ones especially never felt like they were going to cause me a lot of harm. But I still
they just eat up your ammo. I always found like those little ones just inconveniencing you, and like when you had them attacking you with like all the other floods, especially because obviously you gave up on the worst mission in the game, which is fair enough.
Wait, when was
he stopped playing at the library?
I think the mission after.
I would have played on, but like I ran out of time.
I think the mission after the library is the one where you have to do the haloing backwards, but everything's gone to shit, and there's just flood and coven warring with each other, and like you're kind of you can kind of. It's quite cool because you can just wait for like one of them to finish the other one off. But I find like when it gets to that point, they do get interesting. And as a concept, this kind of like they look like some of the creations from Annihilation. Like it's just natural evil that's been resting for years. It just needs to consume to live, and like the idea to destroy them you have to kill everything. Basically,
Yeah.
that's the only way you can stop.
I got away with Annihilation when I saw what happened to the captain
And
the
the
kind of
Oh yeah, he becomes.
this
part
kind
of
of
them.
weird monster. It just
He
reminded me of Annihilation so much.
Yeah.
My problem with the Halo story is that I've seen the Donkey videos where he does the story of Halo in like a joke fashion so many times. To me, that's the moment where Captain Keyes goes, "Yeah, yes, it was me all along, Captain Keyes. Only I have the keys to Halo." Like that's what he says in that scene. Oh yeah, but that is great. Yeah, it's a great moment.
Mhm. I do think that it's especially around that point with how the Flood are introduced, like the way it's paced is so like well done. Like the fact that it just starts with Cortana being like, holy fuck, something's really wrong. You need to go somewhere else. I don't even have time to explain why I don't have time to explain. And you getting teleported somewhere. And then it's just like the whole like feeding like the mystery of like things kept going wrong. Like the first time you just go to the entrance and you see the Covenant just running past you, and they're not even trying to shoot you. They're running from something. You're like, oh no, you get that sense
We
of
haven't
dread.
mentioned,
It's really good.
We haven't mentioned Cortana either. I mean, Cortana is
Yeah.
it's such a clever idea, just to have this like AI with personality. You can kind of like, she's good for exposition. She's good for comedy. I think she gets a good balance. Obviously a bit different in this game because later games she become like a more crucial part of the story. Just as like a companion character, she's good. And I think another reason why I think the library is a bad mission is because you miss her.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. No, I agree. I think exposition when done badly is normally one of the things that I hate most about something. But because she is AI, when she delivers information to you, and where the source that she's got it from, it doesn't feel far-fetched or anything like that. It's not like she read a document or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it just works. It just
Because
works.
you're discovering this thing along with Cortana, along with the sheep, along with everyone. Like you as the player don't know what's going on. Like there's obviously context around you fighting with the Covenant, which I don't know how much it has actually revealed in game and how much is like flavor text surrounding it and deeper lore. But like the fact that you're kind of discovering the Halo ring and the Forerunner tech, like along with everything else, means exposition kind of flows naturally. Although again, the story it doesn't stop and tell you anything really. You kind of just keep playing, and it's there if you want it.
It's good. The mission we were talking about with the flood reveal. The other cool thing about it is that I feel like it's one of the best missions that gives you the sense of scale. Because when you first get that reveal, it comes as a bit of a shock for you, and you want to get out of there immediately, so you have time to actually think about what's just happened. And I spent ages that mission trying to get out of that entire building that was in the ground. It felt like a maze, but not in a bad way at all. Like I really liked because it gave me the feeling of wanting to leave and not being able to do that until I actually did, and then it was a really, really good feeling.
Everything just looked because I thought I was just going around in a loop and then realised no, I'm actually moved into a different room, and this room is slightly different from the one before because I can't interact with this panel.
But I thought,
I mean,
so I didn't enjoy that bit because I was just like, where have I been? Am I going where?
I mean, if
Okay.
you follow an evil circ, then that's all you need, to be fair.
no, I think you just end up getting lost and you end up returning to areas that you've already been to before. I don't feel like you're constantly going to a new area.
It's a one pathway. You keep on going to new areas. As someone who
that's
someone who
not what I
speed
had
runs
before.
it by not shooting any of the enemies, going back to a same checkpoint ages away, and then just running past everything and again. I know the route. It's one route. You don't go back.
But it feels like
For me,
it feels like a circle.
I definitely went back on myself before a few times.
It
because
feels
I
like a
got lost.
circle, but it's not.
No, I promise you, because there are rooms when you can go in different doors. You can accidentally walk around, go back to the door that you just came in, and then keep going. You think you're going the right way, and you realise, oh wait, no, I've already been in this room. And then you have to backtrack again. I did definitely turn on myself a few times rather than just taking one room.
I did the first few times until I eventually worked out. I'm going this side, this side, this side.
Yeah, and you get to the elevator, and some of it just doesn't work.
Oh, I loved running to the elevator, still having so many enemies following me, just touching the thing, and then just they kind of stand on the side, just so that AI gets confused. It was one where one of the explodable flood things was just standing there. I was like, okay, hello. And there's lots of times where it just kind of brings up the not the new mission bit, but like the sort of mission sub chapter bit, whatever, and I'm surrounded by enemies because it wasn't expecting me to still have enemies around me at that point. But no, I got bored of the 30 second loop.
I mean,
you weren't actually
And
fighting
so-
enemies. To be fair.
yeah.
No, as in, like,
wasn't
that's
like-
why I stopped fighting the enemies, was because I got bored of that 30-second loop. So that's why I started just running past everything, because I just couldn't. It just wasn't exciting enough for me to actually fight them. It was it was slightly more entertaining just to run past it all, but mostly it was just I had to get to the end.
Don't you feel like you're making more progress if you're going somewhere and killing the enemies while
Yeah.
you're doing it as well, than rather than just going somewhere? You feel like you're actively helping your cause.
I mean, a lot of the time I had very low health because I keep on forgetting.
Because
that
you wanted
there's
the
fall-
lead ending.
because I kept on forgetting that there was fall damage in this game. Because it's just so floaty, and so I'm like, yeah, I'll be fine jumping from this height, and then I just die, or end up on just 1 or 2 bits of health. So I ended up, like, the early game for me, for a lot of it, was basically, if I was sensibly going through killing a lot of the enemies, it only took a little bit for me then to die, and then have to do everything over again. And so that kind of just trained me to just do as little as possible. Which, yeah, sort of what I ended up doing, especially in the later game, where I just wasn't, just because you hold the trigger and then you empty a whole clip on the enemy and you've got through their shields, so then you reload and then you empty another clip into them, and then, I don't know, it's just,
Yeah, I don't know. I feel
I
like
don't like the kind of, you just piss bullets when using basically any gun, but I mean, less so with the pistol, so I just went around with the pistol for a fair bit.
That's
But
Yeah,
then,
but
like
it just-
Harry said
it
earlier,
just-
there are moments where you're in an area and you have to kill them there because they're launching grenades at you and they're insta kills. So
And
you
like,
have to do
the way
something
the way
about it.
vehicles kind of integrate with the gunplay, like I'm guessing at the time, Battlefield was the game that kind of was big on that. I think the first Battlefield game was shortly after Halo.
Feels weird idea that you can't, when you're driving the car, you can't fire any guns or anything.
You come with the Ghost and
And-
the Banshee.
Well, I guess, yeah, but the main vehicle you just reliably get to use is the Warthog.
I think you can
And-
go in the passenger seat and then the AI will drive you though.
I think
I didn't try that.
no,
so
I think
don't know.
I'm pretty
feel
sure
like
it
I
does
was-
happen though.
All right, no, I believe you. I
Very
believe you. I
possibly
believe you.
does. But it feels weird to me that kind of the way it, like, it felt to me like it was suggesting what I should do is drive around in the car and let the gunner shoot them.
Well, you
It
can
was
run
just like-
people over though, which is the
I
fun
am
of
really
it.
I mean,
good at leaping.
I normally
Be
like
better at driving.
using the car to get to an area and jumping out. Like
Oh.
having all these it's almost like you're Hellboy, and you've got all these soldiers with you, and you're just like this other entity. It's just,
So one of the enjoyable bits I found in like the early game was there were just 2 rocks I wanted to get the Warthog past, and so I just felt like I was in solo, just going, nah, we can make it, and I'm just going like, but bashing on the side of it and just moving along, and going, yeah, I wasn't meant to get the car here, I got the car here.
Yeah, but they always like gate you out with like a proper like door, like after a meter or something. They're like, oh, it's fair enough.
Yeah.
You can get the car in some stupid places, and then you're just stuck with the car in a stupid place.
The Invisible Walls, I feel like it gives you a good sense of freedom whilst guiding you to where
Yeah.
you need to be.
I mean,
And also there's a good balance of big outdoor areas and just corridor. Like the game starts, it kind of tricks you. The first mission is like a corridor shooter, and then suddenly it's like, oh no, that is a monster.
I think who it was that said that you don't spend the game following waypoints too much. I think that's a real strength because so many games are just
Follow the man.
What-
Call of Duty, there's just I love COD, but every COD campaign is follow, and then he'll stop and go like, we need to breach this door in slow motion. You have to wait, and you have to hold X, whereas like you kind of take the initiative.
Yeah,
which I really love.
and I really liked just in the final mission there was one instruction Cortana gave me of telling me where to go, but she just said, oh, the armory is near the engineering bay, and I'm like, what does that mean? And I had to like look around and realize like, oh shit, the floor has signs that point to where the rooms are. So there's a little arrow that says engineering is this way, the armory is this way, and you're like, holy fuck, I'm actually paying attention to the environment instead of just following a little waypoint that has my mission on it.
Yeah,
it's
I
really
noticed that
good.
on on the Pillar of Autumn. What it's called?
Yeah, but in Halo you don't get given a map. When you go into a room, it crosses that off the map.
In Halo, you don't try and open your map, and you have to wait 10 seconds for it to load.
But yeah,
You don't have a map in Halo, do you?
no,
You kind of do. You have like a...
It's like a radar, don't
Yeah,
you, pretty much?
Yeah.
You've got like a...
the radar's shit. But
Yeah,
doesn't tell you anything.
It's not
Tells you where the enemies are.
Yeah, that's
Very unreliably.
Well, it's got like a sweeping kind of mechanic,
Yeah.
rather than just being constant.
Yeah, I know that, but still, just like I felt sometimes when I'm just there standing, like still waiting to see where the other standing enemies are. It doesn't seem
Well,
good to
they're a
keep doing
different
that.
colour when they're above you, I think.
It's got a pretty
Or below you.
minimalist half
Yeah.
third of Halo, doesn't it? It's just got like the corners and that.
Mhm.
If I'm remembering correctly. I just remember kind of the vast landscapes. Anyway, Johnny.
Yeah, I think the Pillar of Autumn has. I think that's probably the best map I'd say in the terms of like because it has the actual human signs showing you if you're like I want to go to the escape bay or to the front. You've got actual signs to follow, and then for a lot of the more I guess the precursor things there are just like or at least on the later graphics there's like these little arrows on the floor that you basically have to follow that are just you need them because fuck having to go through that area without having some hint, but they are just a bit like they're just arrows. Whereas suppose like the actual human locations do have that kind of more naturally. But that's I don't know. I do appreciate the kind of the freedom and the not just having the way markers. But a lot of the time it's just like I have no clue where I'm going. This little corridor looks the same as the previous bit of the corridor I've been in. I can't tell if I'm now in a different section of the Halo to where I like crash landed or just. This bit looks the same as that bit.
Yeah,
I guess it's an old game, so like it can't have too many textures.
It's fair
and
enough.
things,
Like when
but
I played
it's-
Mirror's Edge, that was one of my criticisms. That like I found the interior bits really I didn't feel like I was guided enough in them. There's a few missions where I understand.
But in
like,
Mirror's Edge, you've got it does guide you though. It does tell you where you
You
want
follow
to
the
go.
red.
Yeah, I know.
Being chased by the
You
blue.
know the
I
bits
think-
where it really slows down and you're doing the interior platform.
Oh yeah,
sections very
it's pretty
slowly.
shit.
Yeah.
I think another
Halo's got
I
this.
still think
thing that gets me
Yeah, okay.
with the kind of more precursor sort of areas, just like I guess it part of the design is you don't know what it's for. But a lot of the time, just I've been walking down this corridor. It then turned right for a bit, turned left. I went along a bit, and then just turned left and gone right. I don't know. I've been up and down this bit, so a thing that is identical to this that's been everywhere so many times, and just there's this building that there's a room that I now just know from the like it has weird pillars in it, and it's got a really weird way you have to get around it, where you have to like turn right. Oh, it just felt so repetitive. Just the location, the fighting, the enemies.
I mean, the way I played it was I did a different mission each day, so I did it over like the course of a week, you know.
Yeah, I think I did about 2 a day, apart from the library, which I had. That was my only mission that day.
Fucking stake out for that.
I don't understand.
I mean,
Any of you,
I don't
over
dislike
2 days.
it is the one they say
8
they
missions a
they,
day.
they
It
would
is-
say
it
it
is-
does
it
like
It is the weakest mission.
What is the library?
Yeah.
It's one of my favourite ones. I like it.
Fair enough.
You start here, Harry. You've got to get up here.
Yeah, and every level.
I really like that though. I really like that you look up and you're like, holy fuck, I've got a journey ahead of me, you know.
Why are all the elevators like that?
Why are they
I
so
know,
big?
it just-
Because they use them to build the Halo ring, which is big.
It seems slightly weird that it sort of goes, oh yeah, well the most competent things around here are these bots that can just eviscerate the flood and just live whilst they kill the flood is what it feels like it becomes in a lot of the sections. And then I have been, I mean part of it is because I die a lot, but I have walked down the same, especially in the library. I mean, it was after already feeling bored of that corridor, slightly excited to see these new corridors. I've already seen them so many times now.
And how many times did you walk into a town with 3 men following you, and you turn round and you lift your picture over your shoulder? You know what I don't-
First-person shooter campaign, it's not that repetitive. Like,
Yeah,
for a game that literally repeats a mission,
I don't know. I mean,
it's not that
I'd say,
repetitive.
I don't know if I prefer it, but I'd say COD 4 did a good job not feeling repetitive. Your objectives change, the
COD 4
area looks different.
Was
each time
6
as
years
well.
later on a better console, having been inspired by Halo and Halo 2.
Okay.
In fairness,
So, yeah, the closest, well,
I'm saying as far as first-person shooters
yeah,
go.
but they could fit more. They had more time to work on. They could fit more on the disc. Whereas Halo's problem definitely was like they designed
Yeah.
like space, time, and limitations of the time. Like
yeah. My feeling is, well, because Borderlands, I think, is the game to me that's the most similar to Halo that I just really enjoy, but I can't really compare it because of the massive distance in like,
guns
time
as well. Like Borderlands is like the opposite ethos, isn't it? Where it's like every gun is incrementally better, whereas Halo is just like this. These are the 6 guns that you have in the game.
Yeah, I mean, to me though, that's its unique selling point in a way. Well, it's more the comedy and art style, but also the way the weapons and just that. I don't know, because I was there sort of thinking, well, why am I so particularly bored of the 30-second loop in Halo and not so much in other things, especially Borderlands, which has it's not the numbers, it's just that like. There's just something quite fun about, I've done this mission, so I've got this new gun. It's got a little joke on it, and then I fire it, and it fires like 8 little things that then go and just sort of target into one little thing. There's a fun little thing, and this one shoots heads that explodes, and this one is just a flame laser. It's just, that changes the 30-second loop every time. But then, you can't expect that from this sort of game. But anyway, that's me sort of thinking why certain things have moved on.
I mean,
I do this sort of I appreciate that this must have been the thing to come up with a lot.
This is sliced bread.
of things.
Come on, you're talking about sandwiches here. We just learned how to slice the bread. We just realised that you can use one stick to move the camera and the other one to move the player.
And not have them be like on different sticks, part of one control and part of the other on the other stick.
What bumper jumper?
Oh man.
What's
You know what I don't like about Battlefront? The fact that when you die, you go back as someone else or as a different stormtrooper, and in this you're one-man army, and you're doing everything, and it makes you feel like a complete and utter badass.
I mean, the idea of Battlefront is essentially to be expendable. It's like it's 2 numbers of 150. Which one's gonna win? It's kind of like it's more about like the little victories you do. Like one soldier who kills like 10 guys is doing particularly well. Battlefield is the same, and I don't like it. Whereas COD and Halo to a larger extent is like you are God.
Sure.
you do everything.
I understand that, but as a result, I think this is one of the differences in why I like this game a lot more, because you are one person doing everything, and you really are just the ultimate.
I mean, it is just like a power fantasy. Like I get like the idea that Master Chief is just incredibly competent. And
again, I mean, I know nothing about video games, as you could probably tell, but before I started playing games as part of this podcast, there were only like a few games that I knew, well, not even well, but just knew existed, and Halo was one of them. And the thing that I knew about Halo was the design of the Master Chief. I didn't know his name, but just that green suit with the orange kind of visor. Yeah, it's just
very
utterly iconic, isn't it?
Yeah, much of the design is iconic. I love the purple of the Covenant, like the alien designs, especially the little guys.
So what's the Halo game where you've got to die at the end? It's like an impossible boss fight.
Halo Reach.
Reach is like the prequel.
I mean.
So did Bungie make 1, 2, 3, ODST and Reach?
Yeah.
Cool.
They had 3 and they were like,
So they made 3
we want to be out of this. I think Reach is alright.
Reach is okay.
I think Reach is very good. It introduces a completely different cast as well.
Yeah, the characters are definitely the strength of the game. But
yeah. But yeah, so those were the 2 additional games they had to make to be off their contract with Microsoft, because they split, and Halo 4 and Halo 5, arguably worse in some aspects, made by 343.
I mean, I'm not the biggest Halo 4 fan. I think they lose what makes them unique. And like my theory, which is obviously bullshit, but I like to look at, especially in this podcast, look back at like the way things have changed. Is that in 2007, Halo 3 comes out the same year as COD 4, and that's the way people go.
I think it is
and then Halo 4, 343 are playing catch up. Like Halo 5 had like the loot box system, they're obviously trying to implement things that have been popular in other games instead of doing what this did, pushing the boundary. Which is obviously, if you don't have to push the boundary more than like twice, and if you do that twice in your like existence, that's pretty impressive. Yeah,
I think it is more. I think
did it on a daily basis.
The thing with Kubrick is he just made a film in every genre. Like it was like, what the fuck is this guy?
The thing is, Halo has obviously had a like
multi-year, development cycle. It was like more than, what was it, like 3 years for Halo 2, and Halo 5, was like 4 or 3 years ago. I don't know.
I didn't like Halo 5. I thought Halo 4 had some like it was like a guilty pleasure game. Halo 5 was just not good.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, I don't want to get too much into an argument of the extended thing, but my statement has always been Halo 4 had a really good story for its campaign, and Halo 5 I like the multiplayer. Not for the reasons I like the Halo 1 through 3 multiplayer, but for its own weird semi-Titanfall, semi-Halo thing that it became. It was good. But anyway, I think Halo C is really strong as it stands.
We still got to do Silent Hill 2 straight after this.
Straight after, instantly, all four of us. We've all finished. We all got the leave ending.
Leave.
I really hope Johnny gets Maria. That'll be good. Anyway,
We'll get a different ending.
If he gets the dog ending on his first try.
Let's end this segment.
Alright, wait, we need to talk about the amazing story of Halo, though.
We basically have touched upon haven't we? We've talked about it.
What did you think the story was, Ethan?
Did you like it? Well, it's possible.
I mean, exactly. I didn't mind it. I thought. Well, I like the flood reveal quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it's good. But the problem is, if it was a film, it'd be like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. That's the thing. The gameplay is everything.
Yeah.
That's what I love
It's the
about
complete opposite of Silent Hill 2.
it.
Like, everything that I love about one is terrible in the other, and vice versa.
I mean, the gameplay's pretty awful in Silent Hill 2, but I feel like I still defend it on some level.
The
There
gameplay
are
of
some things I
Silent
like
for
about
me, the gameplay of Silent Hill 2 and the story, and then you take those two levels and swap them around. That's Halo. It's got the same level. Like the story of Silent Hill 2 is as good as the game, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't know. I just.
Well, it depends. Would you say that you include atmosphere and ambience as part of the gameplay or as part of the story?
Yeah,
I think
six different categories
that's a
for
different
each
slide
thing.
there, which they're both pretty much level. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think the Halo story. I think it just did something pretty interesting, which is when you reveal the fact that Halo is obviously a super weapon designed to wipe out all sentient life, so that the Flood will die, and you get this really really interesting question from 343 Guilty Spark, who says, like, you asked me, 10,000 years ago, if I were me, would I do it, and he said, yeah, he says, yes, I would do it, protocol dictates action. And then I really like how it's mirrored right at the end with you obviously escaping the Halo ring that blows up, and it's just you and Cortana that make it out of there. And it's just like, and there's the line Cortana saying, we had to do it, didn't we, or something like that. And it's like, oh man, it's actually about something. And I actually understood where the story was going from, like, the beginning,
It's cool. It is interesting how, at the end of it, to save all life, you had to sacrifice a lot of the people that, close to you is a bit strong, but the people that you were working with, the people that you had to fight side by side with.
Our motto, we deliver.
No, the storyline's better than Avatar's, but not very much better. I'll remember this one, that's all I'm saying. Even if it isn't the best.
You remember
We'll remember that.
We're gonna slap some numbers on this.
Yeah, we've gone on for ages. Luckily, we're having a big break. Right. Shall I go? Can I go first?
Yeah, set the bar.
I feel like I've said everything I'm going to say about Halo. It's a pretty influential game. Going back to it, it holds up surprisingly well for me. I think the fact that it kind of influenced so many things, yet like just the core of it is so good. Like just the simplicity of it, and then like the addition, like the simplicity of the controls and the way, but then like the additional challenge that it provides with like the tricky AI and the different combinations of weapons. It's just a great game, I'm not too keen on the story. I like the aesthetic of it, but I don't know how much I actually care about it. It's Lord of the Rings, I like the aesthetic. I like the idea of it, but like when we're talking about like all the different, like the history of the world, I'm not that fussed. It's for me, it's a 9 out of 10. Halo 2 is a 9 out of 10. Halo 3 is a 9 out of 10. Just 9 out of 10. It's just so brilliant. Really do like it.
Do the
other
two games build, or is it just the same kind of thing?
I'd say 2 was very much like a game which they didn't have time to finish, but was interesting. I don't know. I'd say they're all unique enough.
Okay.
Yeah, Halo 2 is probably my favorite, even though it doesn't have an ending. And then Halo 3, I'm not so keen on. But I think that it's got some great moments. Also, the Halo 3 does have the worst mission of all the time.
No, Cortana.
Yes,
The worst
that's
mission.
the one I've seen.
That makes the
They
library
all have a
look
bad
really
level. I
good.
think they all have a bad level. Yeah.
And with Johnny, quite a few I would have said.
Mm. I'll go next. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Halo series. You know, I'm genuinely not sure which is my favorite one. Like the first one I probably ever played was like a bit of multiplayer of Halo 2, then fully playing through Halo 3 story, getting into the multiplayer around Reach, you know, and keeping up from there. But you know, the times I've gone back to play Halo CE have been really good. I think I'm glad I'm finally good enough to play all except 2 or so missions on Heroic, because I never could do it, and I think that really adds a challenge to it. I think it forces you to engage with the problem, which is the environment, the room full of dudes, and to kill it in like the most efficient way possible, in the safest way possible, of just like you know, just having that checkpoint and starting again until you can figure out, okay, I need to kill this one flood and take the ammo for the shotgun and then hide behind this corner, and I'll bait them around the corner and I'll fire them, and when I have to reload I'll switch to the assault rifle and I'll just backpedal and shoot them with the assault rifle until they die. And that was from the library, and that was actually really fun. Yeah, I do like the multiplayer. I've been playing all of the games on a Halo Master Chief Collection, trying to discern what it is that makes them different, trying to find which game has my favorite battle rifle in it. And I'm honestly thinking, oh, it might be Halo 4's battle rifle. The sound effect design in Halo 4 is really good. But that's neither here nor there. The Halo CE multiplayer has been really fun. It's probably one of the ones I'm the best at, I say. Not that I'm that great at any of them, even though.
I mean, I remember beating you.
Yeah, you beat me in Halo 5.
No, Halo 1.
And Halo 1, yeah. We've had a few duels over there. We've had
Jedi Super Speed.
We've had Jedi
I
Super
suck
Speed.
at Jedi Super Speed.
Oh man,
actually
yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah, I cannot play that game.
It's really fun when you're opposite ends of the bridge and you take those things that send you shooting up and you can try and hit someone mid-transit.
Halo's always been good for that. Yeah, Halo C multiplayer is really fun. Again, the pistol is just the most fun weapon. Just killing people in 3 hits. Like the story, I think I'll agree with Harry said. Yeah, the world has a great design sense to it that sort of evolved over time, but Halo C is a really strong showing of it. I'm going to give this game a solid 10 out of 10.
Nice.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Tony, this might be the first 10 I've ever got from you.
No, Portal 2.
Oh, yeah, cool. Come on.
Jonathan, do you want to go next so that I don't end on a bad note?
The texture of the blood is something I need to
This
discover.
comes out as I hate this game.
Yeah.
Alright, I think
Turns
it's-
out the flood reveal is the only thing he liked.
I mean, that happened with Inception. It can happen again. Johnny's a master converter.
Yeah,
It's a
right.
master
Let's
conception.
have the now typical Jono third review because he's gonna throw
We're
us
gonna have
the
that
tone.
so often. Now we're back.
Oh, yeah.
So I know what to do. I think Tony and you, you're gonna be together.
We're just gonna have to say exactly at the same time. Anyway, yeah. So it I don't know. So when I first played it for a bit, I did find it quite a bit of fun. I was enjoying the sort of sound effects of some of the play. But then when I continued it on, I just very quickly got bored, and then it stopped grabbing me, and I sort of stopped playing it by its own rules, basically. And I say that to try and sound cool. I just ran past, tried not to fire, and it kept me vaguely interested. But I'm not gonna go back and finish it off now that I don't have anything to try and urge me forwards for a deadline.
You will compete at the retcon too, though, right?
You don't need to. Like,
Yeah, probably.
I'm saying, as the picker of the game, I'm guessing that's how it works. I'm saying you don't have to finish that. You have to finish Silent Hill 2 though.
Yeah,
We
of
literally
course.
cannot talk about it until you finish.
I want to bring this up now really quickly. Because you two didn't finish Sonic 06, I'm allowed to pick something that both of you pick that I don't have to complain about enjoying it.
I fucking suffered.
Yeah,
okay,
You
so
guys
don't worry, Harry.
It's a
Whatever
free
you want me to
nightmare.
watch, whatever you want me to play, I'll do it. But these two, there'll be
John
one.
Wick
There'll
2.
be one.
Over the Godfather. I'll be watching The Godfather in one room. I'll make you watch John Wick 2 in the other room. And you're not allowed to come in. That's what you gotta do.
Ethan, if John Wick was just a game that was basically Halo, would you like it?
Oh yeah, 100%. John Wick was a game. It'd probably be a 9. Yeah.
Anyway, I think I'm gonna. Because when I score things, I don't think I give much on like when it was made or the sort of importance it's had later.
Oh yeah, please
So-
factor in the year things are made before you review Silent Hill 2. Please.
I
Wait.
think
I mean, you don't have to. Personally, I try and judge. Like, if something's like really racist and it's from like the 30s,
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not like a film comes out today and it's really racist. Obviously.
Yeah, there are things on that like,
I know,
you
from
ignore and put
the-
aside. But more I'm saying that I think I usually do take into account roughly when it was made. But when I give this a 5, it's not based on the impact it's had because I know it's had a big impact and like in terms of that it's not worthy of a 5. But in terms of my experience, it's very much a meh 5.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, you can put in a piece of shit and say it's being very culturally relevant and it's inspired like everything, but like, it's still could be a piece of
2001.
shit to you. I get it. I mean,
better than that.
So it's not a
yeah, I know
it's
what you
just
mean.
a meh.
Yeah.
I was
I
like,
think for me, I take great importance in things that kind of push the boundaries. That's stuff that really interests me.
That's why you gave 2001 a 10.
No, I didn't give it a 9. I mean, I give it a 10. I don't know.
2001 is in your top 20.
I mean, Ethan, I'm trying to factor out 10s. Come on, you know, it's a
Yeah.
5-star film.
Stars. We should start rating things out of 20. I keep telling you, make it even more
Yeah,
specific.
but it's like the Mediate podcast when we get 4 podcasts. Like, once you hit 20, you might as well just go to 100. Like, that's like.
Oh, could you imagine rating things out of 100? That'd be so
Well,
good.
you do just a decimal,
Yeah.
right?
it's just
I suppose so, but then you'd...
Remember when Lawrence tried to give something like a 5.6 or
No,
whatever?
I remember one of my favourite moments in the entire podcast was when he asked Jonathan what you give Bioshock Infinite, and then Jonathan said an 8, and they said, oh, put a decimal in, and you said 8.0.
oh yes.
Ethan, Halo.
Yes, Halo. Oh god. I obviously, because this has been so soon, I haven't had a chance to go back and replay it. But having played it, I think it definitely has replayability value. I'll definitely go back and play it quite a few times.
We need to
before I
play
die,
2
actually.
or 3 next year.
Yeah, well, we need to do Silent Hill 3 for sure. That's what I'm looking forward to. But yeah, no, this was a game that, like I said, I'd known about for a really long time, and I'd always wanted to play it if I ever got into games. And now that I have getting around to playing it, and I really, really enjoyed it. And it's, I also take into account the fact that, well, it's nice that we're doing Silent Hill 2 with this podcast. I feel like I can talk about Halo in reference to that. Silent Hill 2 is a game that took me about a month and a half to complete because while I do love that game, it is exhausting.
Yeah.
Like, it's the video game equivalent of a Dementor. It sucks the life out of you. But this game I finished over 2 days, and even by then I could have just gone, I think, and probably played it again. It is so fun. I think I'm going to give it an out of 10. It's a very solid out of 10. And if I play it again before Retcon 2, it could very well go up to a 9.
Do more multiplayer, Ethan.
Yeah, multiplayer is really, really fun. Yeah.
Do
I
more
think it is just
CC.
because the story. The story's pretty weak and kind of fairly conventional.
What's 8?
To this podcast and do the right thing. We're
It's only if you watch the film, do the right thing. You ready to talk about it?
No, I've seen Silent Hill 2 though.
All right, so 2001 Part 2. What do you think, Johnny? All right, so here's what.
We should just get Grian as a guest and just ask us, what do you think, Johnny?
So basically, the three of us. I picked Silent Hill 2. Some shit happened. Johnny hasn't played it. It took Tony a while, but he did it. So the three of us are going to talk about it. Full spoilers, just like we do in normal Mediate. Johnny is going to play it for a second round of Retcon, if that's going to happen. Wink, wink, come in it is. And then he'll listen to this segment. Hi, Johnny. You're the first person to be listening to this segment. Like an hour and a half into a very big video.
What was the other half of this podcast again?
Halo.
Okay.
We're already given a 10. I mean, come on, you're getting ready for your second 10. It's Silent Hill 2 10.
It's not a perfect
Yeah.
timing.
So yeah, the three of us are going to talk about Silent Hill 2. It's a bit different, bit of a different dynamic, We've ever done a pod with just the three of us.
Yeah, but there has been a pod with the three of you before, and I wasn't part of the podcast yet,
There's
all
also-
those years
There's
ago.
also been a podcast of just me and you, Ethan. There's also been a podcast of just me and Tony now.
That was
so-
recorded
You've done one
today.
with just you and Johnny?
Nah, that's another dynamic. I mean, Johnny hasn't done one with just anyone.
We need to explore,
Johnny's had the least number of podcasts.
explore all the
Johnny needs a
types-
solo series. Get him a solo podcast.
Well, yeah, that will spin off the TV roundup and have it be like its own Netflix original series.
So sorry, Johnny. I mean, you are in Leeds right now. So anyway,
Shame.
Silent Hill 2 is a game released in 2001, hence why I picked it. Developed by Team Silent, the small ragtag team of people in Konami, who I think in '97 they took a bunch of people from random studios, slapped them together, and were like, just copy Resident Evil, please. and they created Silent Hill. Turns out that some of the people they slapped together were pretty talented, and they made something a bit better than just a Resi clone. You know, drew in elements of like Lynchian storytelling and psychological horror to create the original Silent Hill. And then it did really well. They were like, don't know what you did, but do it again. And they gave them more resources, and then they created Silent Hill 2, which is hailed today as one of the most kind of underrated games of all time. It's a cult classic. Some people would call it one of the greatest video games of all time. Does it hold up? No, but we're going to talk about it. I still think it's great. One thing I will say is that when we first decided to do Mediate, and fate decided that I would have 2001, I was always going to pick this
Random
game.
wheel.
Yeah, still spinning it.
Yeah, when did we stop doing that?
When you arrived, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, a little bit.
I think in your first podcast you just ruined the illusion. We're like, oh, okay, you ruined everything.
Sorry.
Nah, I'll be nice to you, so you give it a high score. No, Silent Hill 2. I was always going to pick it. Although I was worried about Tony, because Tony, this is one of the scarier games that exists.
Yeah.
I know Tony's not the biggest horror fan, so I didn't want to. I gave him a lot of choice. Like for a year and a half, I was like, Tony, I will pick something else.
Yeah, I always said I would try it, and that's the best I can do, right? And then you were like, no, but you also have to finish it. And
Yeah.
I was like,
That was my dilemma, because
Oh,
you
no.
can't really talk about the game unless you finished it.
It's quite a well-known game. Were you aware of it before?
probably
Harry
had
said he was
heard
gonna-
the name of the series, but I actually didn't know that much information about it.
Yeah, because same with me. But then, like when I realized what I was going to do, I played it. It was like, oh, okay, this is pretty good. The gameplay doesn't hold up, but like the story doesn't like care.
And why did you decide to play it then in the first place?
Because I just there's a thing you can do on Google called 2001 games, and then a list of games comes and then you go, I've heard of that one. So yeah,
he just broke the illusion of the podcast.
but yeah,
Sometimes we type 2001
one
films.
And then sometimes if you can't find one, you type 2000 films and find one that was like, released late. Yeah. So Silent Hill 2, played it, was pretty good, and I played it once again for the podcast, and then it's been a very long time, so we'll see how well I can remember it. I've got a couple of playthroughs. Ethan, you played through the I played through I think we all played through the HD collection.
Yeah.
Which is obviously not the good way to play the game. I'll quickly now do the HD collection thing. So, game came out on the PS2, did really well. Then they released a extended version with extra features and stuff for the Xbox, the original, the PC, and the PS2 again. Then years later, the PS3, PlayStation's original mantra was every PlayStation game you'll be able to play on the new PlayStation console. So PS1 games you can play on the PS2, PS1 and 2 games you can play on the PS3. Until they realised that the PS3 wasn't making money and it would save them a lot, and the backwards compatibility thing wasn't really working, so they made it unable for you to play PS2 games on the PS3. So then suddenly there was a need, and also it was right in the craze of like 2010s, 11s with the HD collection. Like everyone was making HD collections and just slapping PS2 games in the PS3, like stay on the HD even though they look shit to make a bit of extra money. And it was time for Silent Hill to do that. Obviously the franchise has already gone downhill by this point, So post Silent Hill 4, they tried to westernize, they disbanded Team Silent, everything's going to shit. And the HD collection they outsourced to a very bad company, because the good company they outsourced to was making Metal Gear Konami. And they used the wrong code. They used the code from the demo version of the game
Oh
So-
no.
But that wasn't. Was that by accident purely?
Yeah.
Or did they deliberately mean to
they
use-
accidentally used the wrong code because apparently the original code had been lost, but then they found it years later and it hadn't been lost. It was the bit. All reports say from behind the scenes it was a massive shit show. Like the wrong audio. It performed worse than the PS2 version. You know, Silent Hill 2 and 3 they packaged. They didn't put the original 4 in there. You know, there was the new voices, the original voices. Silent Hill 3 you can only play with new voices, not original.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how the HD collection doesn't include the first or fourth game. It just includes the middle two of the fame of
Odd.
Konami
It was
ones.
the whole thing was odd, and subsequently they tried to make it better. Me and Tony played the PS3 version, which I can say it doesn't aid the game. This old game, which has a lot of like old game design philosophies, which is pretty negative towards player experience and pretty hostile. The environment and like the game design hasn't aged well. And then the fact that you're playing a broken version of the game, where when you unpause, there's like 3 seconds of darkness where the game is actually going on, but you can't see what you're doing.
Yeah.
Whereas Ethan, you played the HD collection version for the 360, but which is a better version than the PS3 version.
Yeah, when you
first
come out
of
of the pause menu, when you go back to the actual gameplay, that time is a lot short.
Not
So
only
you
that though,
almost
you
do
played it on the
HD
Xbox
straight
One, so they've done an extra update for the backwards compatible version. So you played the best possible version. We probably played the worst possible version of Silent Hill. I mean, obviously with the podcast, you want to play the. And now I've gone back to picking games because I hate myself. It's hard to play games in their original form because getting hold of the original consoles and stuff. And my dilemma with 1987 and Star Fox is like, some HD collections are so radically different from the original game. It's picking them cheating because it's almost like you're playing a different game.
I mean, when we did Halo,
Exactly.
it was I would say it's a pretty faithful like way of playing it, but it was also I was doing it on an Xbox One X that could do it in like 4K, you know,
Yeah.
rather as whatever.
I mean,
480
with Halo, I
resolution they
tried
used
to
run in.
say, like, do it on the old graphics.
Yeah.
Whereas this is like, I mean, in fairness to myself here, you're playing a worse version.
Yeah,
You just
yeah,
gotta-
exactly.
Yeah, imagine it
But
runs.
I think, from what I've seen of the PS2 version, because I watched a walkthrough of it quite recently, I'd say the aesthetic still looks pretty similar. Like, I mean, I feel like from what I've seen of the PS2 version, there are things that are done better. Like, there's obviously some hiccups and some things that they did a bit worse on the HD collection, but I think overall graphically they look about the same. So it's not like you're playing a whole new game, something that's completely different to the original. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like Silent Hill 2 in HD. Like, why would you want Silent Hill 2 in HD? I think the fog was like a big thing. The fact that obviously it was in the PS1 version, it was to hide the render distance. In Silent Hill 2, it was to keep the same aesthetic. And also, it hides things. I think the fog works really well. It's obviously the most infamous thing about Silent Hill.
Yeah, it's still in the HD collection.
Yeah, but the HD collection, the fog is so thin, you can see everything.
Oh,
Whereas in the
yeah.
original, it's dense. You
Yes,
can't really
that's
see
true. Yeah,
4 steps in front of you, which adds to this kind of foreboding sense of the atmosphere of the game. And the atmosphere is one of the strongest things. The fact that in the outdoor sections, which aren't that frequent, in fairness, that aspect is completely ruined. Also, the boat section is awful. Like, there are so many like little things that just look worse. that are kind of
that
bullshit.
half an hour long segment.
I'm going to talk about my max vote speed.
All right. So now 10 minutes into this, caveats out the way. Let's actually talk about
Yeah,
the game.
the legal disclaimers.
Yeah, just wanted to get all that stuff out there because you can't. It's hard to talk about old games without all the context
Yeah,
and the kind of the acknowledgement that you're playing an old game.
Yeah, I definitely think that games more than films have sort of like a
Games get better with time.
like pretty much more in a more objective way than you can say films get better, because you know a lot of old films hold up more despite being, I don't know, lower res or not Blu-ray 4K or whatever, whereas games, it's just over time they've just had more options available to them, and I would say that in some cases restrictions breed creativity, but sometimes it's also been a it's sort of hard to go back once you know what modern conveniences are like,
Yeah,
such as
yeah.
a functional pause menu.
Yeah. This one thing I will say about this game, which is left in my mind now. Yeah, okay, it's coming back. All right, so Silent Hill 2 is does it hold up? I don't know, because the game is built on the foundation of Resident Evil. So I feel it's very hard to talk about Silent Hill without understanding Resident Evil and what Resident Evil was and how it kind of, because Resident Evil is essentially a big mansion where you fight zombies and you fight for limited resources, limited save points, puzzles, an interlocking world where different things change. And Silent Hill 2 especially, is almost a subversion of that genre. A genre which is dead now. Like survival horror split off.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist because it's no longer survival horror. It's survival and horror. Resident Evil 4 was essentially an action survival game.
Actually, what about the evil within?
Yeah, so
They're sort of Resident Evil kind of inspired, I think.
because they kind
Actually, don't know.
yeah, they went harder on the action angle with games like Resi 4 and that kind of
Yeah.
thing, even to some extent The Last of Us. And then the horror game, like the first-person horror game, like games like Amnesia
Outlast.
and
all
Outlast,
that.
like they're the bad ones. But there are games like Alien Isolation, Resi 7, like horror is kind of back in a big way because of that. But, the reason I picked Halo is because I love how it influenced games. I love how story shit, but I love how the game design ethos of Halo influenced. Whereas Silent Hill 2 has like this incredible like groundbreaking video game story, which I think very few, maybe Red Dead 2 is like the one, that, and maybe Last of Us, that kind of tackled some of the issues and like are kind of for adults as well. Like this isn't just an edgelord game that a 16-year-old could play. This is like serious stuff that's getting covered. Whereas the game design stuff, the genre is all but dead, and you're playing this kind of ancient relic at times. You're like, what is going on? Why do I enter this room and then I'm spamming A to pick up like a point? It's like a point and click with puzzles, bad action. Like some of the jankiness of the genre really shows through. But I mean that also aids the game's charm.
Well, my input is that since I've not played as much games as you guys, so I don't really have as good a frame of reference as you have. But from my point of view, I feel like the atmosphere and the tone that Silent Hill 2 was going for, I think holds up for me. Because I think, well, I mean, it scares me and terrifies me at times, and it puts me on edge. And I go into new areas not knowing what to expect, and that's kind of what it's going for. So if it achieves its full purpose for me, then I think it does hold up. I think it's aged quite well in that respect. But yeah, I mean, sure, graphically, I mean, if I don't even know what a good thing is to compare to, so I'm just going to compare it to the new Star Wars Battlefront games, which look brilliant. That's of course because they're a lot newer. So it definitely looks old for sure, but I think it does hold up for what it's trying to go for.
It's got a very distinct atmosphere, style, and tone, which I'm glad, despite the bad HD collection, it still manages to come through.
Yeah.
Because like the things that are unique about Silent Hill 2 and really work are things that you wouldn't praise in a normal game. It's not like the gameplay or like the graphics. It's the music. It's the way the music, like the mise en scène. It's almost like you're analyzing a film. You know, it's like the imagery, the themes, like that. That's kind of the unique stuff. And obviously, I asked you guys to finish it because to discuss the story is to discuss how your interpretation of the story. It's very vague in the way.
Depending on the ending you get.
Yeah. I mean, that is a thing that the games have probably done better. But this is one of my favorite games with different endings. I don't know if you've seen them all, Tony.
No, I haven't actually.
We might have to describe them because some of the endings are fucking bleak. Like they can fundamentally change the way you read the game in all the different endings.
Well, what's the leave one?
So
because that's the default one, right?
The ending that I got was Leave, which is the default ending, which is James gets to the roof. It's not his wife, it is Mary, and you can read that as Mary is a physical manifestation of kind of evil, or sort of Silent Hill, trying to kind of tempt him into sin, or you can read it out however you want. But it's essentially him beating Silent Hill and then getting out with the little girl, and then the letter gets read. That's
What's the letter say? Does it?
Oh, the letter is like very long.
Okay.
You get the letter on most.
But it's not like it was like a pain or a bore.
It's the same letter that he gets at Silent Hill. But apparently the bit that he had was only the first half. It's just a much longer version of that, talking about the extent of their relationship and her condition. And it is very powerful and it's well read. The only problem I'd have is it's going very slow and the text is scrolling very like.
Yeah, and it's I don't know if this is so much of a problem, but for my ending, the one that I got, the background is just like. It's just water, so there's nothing particularly interesting happening there. Yeah. It really is just like a Star Wars text.
So you got the saddest ending of the game in water.
I mean, I guess it depends on what your opinion is, but it definitely is one of the saddest ones. I'm sure. The other thing is that I know why I got that ending, but
do you want to just describe that?
Yeah. So the ending that I got is basically the last thing that you see after you kill. I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, it's Maria who's on that rooftop.
Yeah.
That's the final boss. And then after that, you're in some room close to like a bed, and you're reading a letter. And the letter is from James's wife, and she just reads out about. Well, she reads all sorts of stuff. It's quite a dense letter, but I think the main thing that you take away from it is that I think she kind of forgives him in some ways. Well, I remember this was kind of like a good couple of months ago, so I can't remember 100%, but I think it is along the lines of he started to treat her really badly as soon as no, that's not true. Sorry, she started to treat him really badly as soon as she got to the hospital, and that's what kind of drove him to do what he did. And she kind of forgives him for that in a way, and she realizes that she should have been better with him, so she apologizes for that. And then James can't live with himself what he does, so then you get faced with a black screen, and he says something, and then you hear a car just jumping off a cliff, and he kills himself. But the other thing that I found out as well while watching the walkthrough is that, I mean, there are different things that you do to get the different endings. We're not even talking about the dog ending or the UFO ending. But for my ending, I think another facet of it is that you have to look a lot at the knife that Angela gives to you. It's almost as if you're kind of pondering suicide.
Yeah.
That's like a running theme throughout.
I think it is the more you immerse yourself in the world, the more likely you are to get that ending. So the more you read all the serial killer, the bleak text in the world, the more you examine the upsetting items in your inventory. The funniest one is the lower health you keep James on. Obviously, they hadn't got the branching narratives thing up to the modern crisp standard. It was quite. People still these days are theorizing how you get the endings because it's kind of random.
Yeah.
The ending that none of us got, but I think is the best one, is the Maria ending,
What happens?
which you get by treating Maria well. Basically, it's essentially on the roof instead of Maria, it's your wife Mary that you're fighting off, and you kind of beat Mary in that fight, and then you go off and have a happy life with Maria. But then,
nice.
as you get in the car, Maria does the cough that Mary does. Which just essentially means that James is doomed in this cyclical structure of getting over the wife, the new one dying, going back to Silent Hill. It's kind of
That's really
that's a hell of an ending as well.
So I watched all the endings, and there were some that I didn't even get. That didn't seem that special. So that one definitely needs.
So there's three main endings.
Yeah.
There's two joke endings, and then there's the bonus ending which you got to end because you were playing on my save file.
I played on Harry's save file, and I was looking at a walkthrough whenever I got stuck, and I found these moments where it was like, ooh, pick up this weird item if you're in New Game Plus. You'll unlock this one ending, and I was like, well, I might as well. It unlocks a trophy, so I'll do that for Harry. And and yeah, so you go through the game and you just pick up these strange items if you're on New Game Plus. They're like these like books. There's one that's like a book, like a tome of something. One that's like this white chrism. And the sort of I think the meaning of it all is over the game. There's like a lot of crazy shit that happens along in Silent Hill, So maybe there's a way to bring back your original wife, Mary. And so what you're doing is you're collecting the components for some sort of resurrection thing, like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood style, And the end of the game is just you with Mary's body just going. You say some weird thing about like, oh, there's old gods at work at Silent Hill. I was like, where was that in the game?
Oh, is that,
and
is that the one where you're rowing?
You just row, and then you presumably go and rebirth your wife.
Oh, so I didn't get that at all. But
I did have to sort of look it up.
It is my least favorite ending because it kind of implies that he's just gaming Silent Hill to find.
Yeah. So that's one of the ones that I didn't think was particularly special. And the other one is just the one where you leave with the young girl, and you get the same letter, but it doesn't have as much of an impact on you as I think the one.
That's the most positive ending for him because he gets that because he forgives, because the whole thing about Silent Hill is it's a hell of self-imposed guilt. Everyone in there is guilty about a trauma or an act that they've committed themselves, apart from the little girl who's just there. We don't really. I think it's kind of left ambiguous as to if she's actually there or if she is just a manifestation of Silent Hill or James's guilt.
I mean, I feel like.
And leave is very much James forgiving himself and letting himself leave.
Yeah. But going back to what you were just saying about the girl there, I mean, we were talking about it when I completed the game, and I was unsure about who really existed and who was just a figment of his imagination of some sort. And
Does she have a grave? You know, when they're at the graves, does she have one?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because I think that might be
no, I
a
don't
clue
think
as
so.
to if she's real.
I think you've got you definitely got James Sullivan, because that's the funniest thing. 'Cause he just goes to his own grave. The amount of shit that James sees in this game that doesn't faze him, so he just shrugs it off and just walks on. I think it just goes to show, I mean, how he's got so little to lose. He's just I mean, all he wants is his wife back, and he'll go to the ends of the earth for all that. It's the fact that he sees like a hole in the ground, and without knowing how far it will go, I mean, it might kill the guy if it's far enough. He'll just jump down as many of them as possible. I mean, he's so determined.
Excessive hole jumping just to get to the prison that's at the bottom of a museum.
It is quite funny how when you see his grave, you got to jump down into it as well. That's quite cool.
But by that point, like you're not reading it as the literal anymore. It's very much like the metaphorical, and like, I mean, by that point, that's not that weird. You're kind of just laughing along at how like ridiculous this is. Like, I'm going below the museum to the secret prison, and now I'm in the underground labyrinth. Oh, and now I'm at the lake. Just below my own grave.
Yeah. It is quite incredible how, I mean, with a game as weird as this, it's not something that you can really nitpick. But I've always found it kind of strange how you go down so many staircases and through so many holes, and somehow you end up by the lake. Like, you've gone all this way down, and then you never went back up or did anything like that. I think it's just...
It does remind me of Dark Souls 2, where you go to the top of a windmill, take an elevator upwards, and you end at this place where there's there's like an ocean of lava with a castle stuck in it. It's like, hang on, how is this ocean of lava above the sky? It's above the windmill I just came from.
Yeah, that's because I've heard
H-Bubble Guy's video.
Yeah, Dark Souls 2's world's been like praised before. I've definitely seen that. And like, I mean, I've said this a few times before, but now I finally get to say it on the podcast. My favorite character in this game is Silent Hill. I love how Silent Hill is this just omnipresent being in the way it can just manipulate itself to confuse you. The fact that you get to know the hospital and you just get knocked off by Pyramid Head, and you wake up in this kind of this alternate version where there's no fog and everything's different. The fact that after seeing the video, Silent Hill alters itself so that the rooms of the hotel warp you around. It kind of, I love how the world adapts and changes kind of depending on James, and how it's very much this is very much the story of one man, of a few characters, and his head. And it's not some grand apocalyptic narrative. It's a very personal story. I think the first Silent Hill was about a cult. This is very much just about James's own self-guilt. Just want to also the other two endings we didn't mention. The dog ending, one of the funniest endings in the game. I mean, this game is very dark. It's a psychological horror, but I love the sense of humor. You know, that classic kind of Konami Japanese humor, like the Metal Gears full of I love it when Japanese developers try and pander to Western audiences. It's one of my particular niches where like you get like playing up to certain stereotypes, but then certain kind of things come through, like that sense of humor with the dog, and then the UFO ending, which is another funny one. Less funny though, so it's another disappointing one.
It's kind of strange how all of the other endings that we've talked about, and not the two mean ones, are kind of like they work with the game, as in what you actually see on screen, like the texture and everything works. But with the dog, it's because the first thing you showed me was the dog ending, and it made me think the game was going to be completely different. Because I mean, when you go inside the room, you see the dog at the controls, and just the look of the room itself is what I expected to go into Silent Hill. It's completely different, and the UFO, it looks like a comic book, doesn't it? So texturally, they're just very, very strange and completely different to the rest of the game, which I think is.
I think they gave the team a lot of creative freedom, and a lot of the team had different creative influences and genres and styles that they wanted to bring to the game. Like it's already been said, the Silent Hill 2 is a beautiful video, which is my required reading for this seminar.
Is it a local control video of this game?
It very much is. The different directors that influenced it, and like the fact that the music designer had such great influence on the story, and promise reprise. Come on, guys. The music of this game is such an eclectic mix of like alt rock, just incomprehensible sounds, and it really matches the tone, I think.
No, I do like going on YouTube and looking through the soundtrack. About half of them are actual kind of like short little tunes, mostly played on a piano. Sometimes you get there's one that I particularly like. It's the one that It's the one that you hear straight after Maria dies for the first time, and it's also what plays after you watch the VCR.
It's Promise Reprise.
That's not Promise Reprise, but it's one that starts off dun dun
Dun,
dun
dun,
dun 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 dun.
Yeah.
And it's got like a kind of EDM thing going on, which is quite cool. So you got like a broad mixture of different things, and then like Harry said, you got some which are just for the atmosphere. They're kind of like random, sometimes ear-piercing sounds, sometimes just the sound of something grating across a wall, something like that, and it just builds to the ambience really, really nicely. And there are some that are kind of just like, there's one in particular that you hear a fair amount of times, and it's kind of, there's something really weightless and dreamlike to it, and I can't remember what the track is called, but again, it just gives you another change of sound as well, and they all kind of work really well together. That's the thing, that they're all very, very different pieces of music, but they all still work within the confines of the game itself.
And the game doesn't have the Minecraft background music. Like it knows to keep its kind of horrific atmosphere and tone. It knows when to shut the fuck up. You just hear the sound of your footsteps, the crackle of the radio, and then it gets you with a few. One of my favorite ones is when you go into the toilet, knock on the door.
That got me.
That's a great one.
I got like a scream that happened.
Yeah,
That's what happens.
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah. Also, another one of my favorite, just pieces of sound design in general. The sound design is so good. I love it so much. Along with the creature design, I think they really complement each other. Like these horrific creatures that are. We can go into what the symbolism of each creature design is, because you can write essays on that, and the Freudian symbolism or whatever. But the fact that when you're going down for the first time, like the sirens that start signaling, and there's just little moments of sound design which the HD collection, some of them leaves out, that are just very, very clever, especially with and it just adds to the weight of it all. Like when you hear that great sword, you see
that's a good one.
just the sound of
I
the
really
creatures
like
in
the
Pyramid
design
Head.
of the Pyramid Head.
I like Pyramid Head a lot as well. Yeah, because
It's a good antagonist.
Yeah, it's really. I think his introduction is fantastic because he doesn't do anything. You just see him standing still, like across from you at a grate. And there's the really funny donkey thing where he walks up to it. He's just like, okay, I'm gonna walk in the other direction now. But yeah, it's a great intro because you've got no idea who he is, who he's there. You can barely see him as well. I think you can just see like a little bit of him, but he's frightening enough to make you walk in the direction. The next time you see him, he's doing some really, really weird things with these two pairs of legs. It's like, what?
That entire apartment section of the game, I wouldn't call it good. I think it's important to establish the tone and the genre. But the story starts after the apartment. The apartment makes up a large chunk of the game because it has one of the most ambiguous puzzles of all time with canned soda down a trash can, and you don't even know you have to click on your menu and click use on items at that point. It's that's a very obtuse puzzle.
But then I feel like the game in general kind of leaves you out. That sort of thing. You have to learn things for yourself, and specifically.
If you
for
criticise
combat,
that, I'll bring up Dark Souls.
I mean, no, I
no,
don't know.
hang on. Let me finish.
I think it's a Japanese thing.
Wait, no, Ethan, you wanted to finish?
Yeah, the other thing is, like I said, the game kind of it how do I describe it? Well, anyway, I mean, when you learn how to combat, they don't tell you what to do. You have to figure out for yourself. So I feel like with a lot of the things, you have to kind of work out for yourself for the first time, and then you kind of get used to it as the game goes on. Yeah, what are you gonna say?
Well, I was just gonna say the fact that the game, like, it is purposefully obtuse in a way that I think the fact that it has this atmosphere that you've said is like very, very, a Silent Hill-esque.
It's oppressive. Like the game doesn't kind of want you to play it in a way. You have to fight the game to play it.
Yeah. And in comparison to the fact that the canned soda puzzles, which I suppose in the era of walkthroughs, are they really that much of a problem? You can just Google what do I do. But then once you've made that decision to sort of not try and solve every problem yourself, you then sort of feel like, all right, I might as well just do that for other times when I get stuck, and you're less inclined to work as hard just on your own, which is a shame, I feel, because I don't know, I feel like
with the fact that the game offers you there's a difference between the physical puzzles and where do I go in this area, because some especially if you're playing on a harder action level, I understand that. But then there's the riddles, where you can change the difficulty of the riddles to you're solving a 16 stanza poem, and reading the first line, it's you do some really that's the great stuff when you can.
But because when I was watching the walkthrough, I was watching them play it on a hard riddle difficulty. But I actually quite like the riddles that you get because some of
Yeah,
them are
they're
extremely poetic and you really have to do a lot of deciphering. You've got to work quite hard for.
I love that a game like had that. Like, where's that gone? Like the fact that you can. I know with all the discussions about accessibility in games, that, like, a game from like 2001 was having accessibility options. Like you can turn up your break, like how much, like which elements of the game you want to kind of be challenging. I mean, there's always the skip puzzles option, but the make the puzzles harder but make the game easier is such a cool thing that you can do, which I love. Also, this is an old game, and old games are generally harder. They didn't make them as accessible as they do now. So there's that in terms of like not telling the player what to do all the time. And then I think that like games like Dark Souls and like old kind of Japanese, I think it might be a Japanese thing and being very obtuse. I think Western games are more interested in like.
Make the argument that I suppose it's unfair because I knew how to get around Dark Souls when I first played it, but it's more. Yeah, I suppose this in Dark Souls it feels like you always have somewhere to go, whereas this, like, I felt I met situations where I had been to every dead end and didn't know where to go, and was like, well,
I mean that's a good point, but I also get the impression that from what I've seen of Dark Souls, Silent Hill 2 has more direction. Like I know
it's more of a linear game. I think you can go around Dark Souls in a few different.
Yeah, with Dark Souls, it is. It's really non-linear. You can go whichever direction, which way, and that is what makes that really good for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But with this game, it's nice to know that there is. When you look on a map, there's an area circled, and you need to be heading that way. And you're right. There were times when I thought I'd been down every shady alleyway, through every dodgy road, and I picked everything up, and it turned out that I just hadn't been spamming A enough in those areas, which has happened before actually. There were some areas where, especially. I think this was in the hotel right at the end of the game. There were times it was one of the 3 music boxes. I collected 2 of them, and the third one I couldn't find. I spent like a good 30-45 minutes going back in every room, spamming A. And it turns out it was in the cellar where they kept all the food, and it was like in between 2 different onions. And in that room where you spam A, it says, "Oh, it's just vegetables. There's nothing to be here." So you have to be at a very precise position in the room to pick up the music box, which is kind of annoying. And that has happened before a few times in the game where the positioning of my character just wasn't precise enough to pick up the object.
It's the fact that it's so hard and to do the things like the fact that if you were trying to work out, say, the puzzle where you have to use your hair and a hook and a piece of wax to get something out of the shower drain, the fact that you could not only is that so hard to work out, but you could try and do it and be in slightly the wrong place and think, oh, that doesn't work, it must be something else, and spend another eternity trying to think of something else.
That one's almost comically like bad, the wax doll, the horseshoe, and the lighter, which does make sense because you use the lighter to melt the wax doll and then stick the horseshoe to the trapdoor. But it's such that is a bit of a ridiculous one.
But the one where you have to find something out of a drain pipe, I feel like that one's a bit better than the canned juice one because I feel like that one doesn't leave you in the dark as much. It does tell you, you need to have something long to reach down in here.
Yeah.
So you know you're meant to be looking for something.
The hair and the needle. Also, there's that great troll where you open the box.
Jesus Christ.
Like, there's nothing in here. I do like that a lot.
Yeah.
Could have just pulled one of your own hairs up.
Yeah.
Plot holes. But like you mentioned Dark Souls, and from what I've gathered, Dark Souls is very. You carried on. You mentioned Dark Souls 2. You mentioned Dark Souls 2. And
I mentioned the Dark Souls speed run before this. Alright,
we've all mentioned Dark
Souls.
We've all mentioned Dark Souls.
We're all hacks. Everything is just like Dark Souls.
I was using it to transition. So Dark Souls, from what I gather, the story is very much in the world, whereas this is the world is very much a vehicle to tell the story. Like I almost see the gameplay and the action based, which is bad combat let's be honest. And bad boss fights and stuff like that stuff isn't the game. The game is the story, and I don't know, because you have to have that kind of thing, because it's basically Silent Hill's origin was a Resi clone. Resi has combat, Resi has puzzles. I wonder if had the game kind of existed in today's landscape, they would have de-emphasized those elements and emphasized the more psychological horror and the puzzles, focused less on the combat, which is the weakest element of the game. But I think we all generally agree that you kind of just have to force yourself through the gameplay, which is difficult.
You agree that you have to do that, whether that's a good thing.
Yeah, like
I don't.
I would struggle to describe Silent Hill 2 as a fun game.
Yeah.
to play.
Especially since I would definitely, with Ethan 7 out of 10 thing, knowing how obtuse it is, I would find it really hard to recommend it to anyone.
No,
Yeah,
see-
definitely. You have to know someone enough that they'll push through. Either they've played enough old games that they're just used to playing old, very obtuse games, or they'll find the story interesting enough to push through that.
Did you honestly think that me and Tony would finish the game? I know we always joked about, you'll never finish.
I thought you would finish it, Ethan. I knew Tony would eventually, and I don't think Johnny's ever going to listen to this.
Yeah, but see, I through the bad times that I had during this game, I had a good time in a sense, which is like a strange thing to
It's
say.
not fun, but it's interesting. Like in the same way that like I wouldn't call like a very gory horror film or like a piece of psychological horror or genuinely upsetting imagery.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say shouldn't exist. Fun. I'd say it's still artistically gratifying to consume something that changes your perspective of the world or makes you think about real issues.
That's a very pretentious way of putting it, but I completely agree with you. But see, the thing is, well, it depends on what you would consider to be good criteria to recommend a game to someone. But for me, because this is now one of my favourite games, I would recommend it to everyone. But you're right, I wouldn't recommend it to someone who's been playing like Wii Sports their entire life. I wouldn't recommend it to someone who's like an amateur.
Someone who's just
gamer.
been
It would
playing
have to be-
Fortnite, you know,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
would recommend
There
this.
was a
But
Silent
a more
Hill,
experienced game player, I would definitely say, hey, if you like
True
horror,
there was a Silent Hill game exclusively for the Wii, and the
is that
lead
Downpour?
might be. And do you know who the lead developer of it is?
Who?
Sam Barlow of Her Story
No
fame.
way! Oh,
Yeah.
that's incredible. Oh, man.
Come full circle. Anyway, sorry, just wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
Should we actually talk about the story? Or just moments or whatever you guys want?
Yeah, we can. I wanted to give like a little bit of a backstory for me really quickly with this,
Yeah, sure.
because this, unlike a lot of the games that I've played as part of this podcast, where I knew very little about it, and I still did to some extent with this game. But with those games, it was kind of like, no, here's the title, go ahead and play it, and I kind of knew about it maybe like a week before I started playing it. With Silent Hill 2, I had the benefit of having Harry talk to me about it for like about a year beforehand.
I've been very obsessed by this game.
Yeah.
It's like
But then-
Synecdoche, New York. It's like in my brain now.
But it was such a. But I feel like I wouldn't have liked this game as much as I did if I hadn't had that person telling me all sorts of things about it, and I was genuinely intrigued. And a lot of it came down to the fact that all of the stuff that Harry told me was along the lines of, "Oh, the game hates you. You're gonna want to die while playing it. It's a nightmare. Just don't play it." But then through that, I just wanted to
I
see
sell
what I
my
was missing.
games well.
Yeah, but from the storyline itself, it's a really intriguing premise. It was a bit I think for a while you considered not choosing it. No, it was Memento you considered not choosing because it had the same twist. Right?
Sorry for spoiling Memento. Alright, yeah. The premise of you get a letter from someone you thought was dead is such a good premise that like Resi is doing it now. Like Resi 7 has the same plot. It's such a good elevator pitch for a game that your wife who's been dead for 5 years? Yeah, or 3 years. I mean, I've got Avengers on my head.
It's
Pretty sure it's
definitely
3 years.
3 or 5.
Yeah, your wife that's been dead sends you a letter telling you to go to this place where weird shit is happening. It's such a good, solid premise. And
Yeah.
the way it kind of branches off.
It's a
from
good
that.
Kickstarter for a game.
Yeah,
isn't it?
which is
Straight
weird
away.
because it's got such a grindingly slow first act
I know.
before that story gets started again. And that story is like the reason to play the game. So it's very hard. I see why people might not like it, why people might drop out, but I would urge people just to get
But at the
past it.
same time, but you're
It's
right.
still good.
The
It's still
first
good
act,
for atmosphere
yeah,
and
but
tension.
yeah, sure. The first act still drags, but I feel like what gets you through that is the fact you get introduced to a lot of the characters quite early on.
But the best
and they all
characters
have their
are
interesting things.
I think.
Really? Because I think Angela's my favorite.
I think Angela's the most.
she's the
interesting.
first person you meet.
Yeah, Angela's the most interesting to talk to. But like when you realize something really weird is happening when you meet Maria, who's this like inversion of your wife, and you're like, okay, something odd is happening.
Yeah, I suppose so. So you definitely have that, but it's more the fact that when you meet these characters and you know a very, very small amount about Angela from what she's told you, that you wonder why she's there in the first place, and you want to learn more about these characters and their reasons for being here. And I know Eddie's a bit of a meme, but there's still some part of me that when you meet him for the first time, when he's vomiting in that toilet,
And you click on him like 100 times, just
Yeah.
keep watching that animation.
Yeah. But yeah, from talking to these characters for the first time, quite early on, you have a reason to keep going on because you want to learn more about them and why they're here and what their reasons are for being in Silent Hill. And Angela especially, because Angela's a really good character because the first time you meet her, there's definitely something up with her. She's slightly on edge, and then the second time you meet her, you have the benefit of having Promise Reprise in the background during that scene. But she's like a completely different character. It's almost as if she's schizophrenic. She's really damaged and completely delusional, and you don't know what's happened in the meantime. And so you keep pushing on to find out more about her and what her background is. And it's the same with other characters, I think. Well, Laura's really cool as well because she's not someone who sees the monsters. To her, this town is just kind of like... I mean, I'll even go as far as to say that it's a fun place for us. Exciting place to explore.
Yeah, it's almost like Silent Hill 2 is like this mirror that kind of holds, like, whatever you bring to it, it kind of reflects back at you. Because you don't know what kind of creatures... It's, well, you got to kind of look at the reasons people are there. Eddie's there because he's, like, violent. Angela's there because she burned the house that her abusive father was in, killing him. And you're there because you murdered your wife, essentially, or put her out of misery, or however you want to put it. So everything you kind of see, all the monster design is that kind of reflection. So like just the legs and these nurses with cleavage. This is essentially James's like repressed sexual guilt for like having like lust while his wife was dying, and like kind of like
The hot nurses that were attending his dying wife.
What are they called? The bobblehead nurses or something like that?
yeah. And then just like the physical manifestation of limbs or straight jackets, you know, like not.
Yeah.
I don't know what you
Yeah.
read the straight jackets as, just unable to kind of let himself. I don't know if that's him or if that's Eddie.
I mean, I would have. So the straight jackets have like, they have a sort of physique that's more female than male. I would have said. I always thought that it was.
I'd say
his
all
wife
of
being
the
strapped up.
character designs are more. Well, most of them are female, and then there's Pyramid Head, who's just the ultimate kind of representation of masculinity, in that he's just this big triangle-shaped man with a massive sword. Just in terms of the kind of the phallic imagery, it's off the scale.
One of the most interesting things about this game is that James goes around fighting different monsters. They all symbolise something. They're all a projection of some sort. But then the one monster that doesn't have anything to do with him is Angela's, and I wonder why he sees that. And I also wonder if Angela sees her father rather than the monster itself.
I mean,
and it's James who sees
just the image of that monster is so like upsetting. Like that entire sequence is almost too much, like for a game to kind of tackle. Like,
Yeah,
it's literally like these like holes in a room which looks like a mental kind of like padded cells with like pistons and this kind of shape, which it's pretty obvious what that shape is. Like what the shape. It's very upsetting. And the fact that a game would kind of tackle subjects like this, like the games ain't done it since. Let's just say that.
Yeah, so
there might be a reason why they haven't done it, but I'd say it tackles it with a level of maturity. And horror as a genre is the only way you can tackle things like this.
That was the other thing you told me. So it was along the lines of the game hates you, it's your worst nightmare, and this game shouldn't exist. Like it shouldn't be real. So those were the kind of things that you were telling me before I started the game. But yeah, that's really disturbing. This may have been me just not being perceptive enough in the moment, but I still think that then it was still vague, as in who Angela was. Even in that scene where you fight the abstract daddies, I think I was just like an idiot. I think at that point it's quite obvious. But having said that,
The more you think about it, it's one of those games that the more you think about it, the more kind of upsetting it is.
yeah. But do you think that she sees her father? Or the monster that James sees?
I think the
Maybe
monster.
it's the same thing.
The monster is like the monster is kind of the reflection of her anxiety and her psyche, I guess. I mean, but then she just sees everything on fire, doesn't she? And then there's a room where you can suddenly see what she sees.
Yeah, that's quite cool. But then why does... you never fight a monster in the same room as Eddie as well, so you never really see what Eddie sees. I mean, you assume that he sees the monsters because there's that great part where he says, "You're going to go out there where the monsters are." He just turns around and goes, "Yeah," and then walks out. So you assume that he sees them as well.
Yeah, you don't know what Silent Hill is, because if you subscribe to my theory that Silent Hill is kind of this predator that takes like these victims and kind of pushes them to their limits to try and test them. And test whether they're worthy, and test whether they're actually like ready to forgive themselves. It's it chooses to show you what other people are seeing, and it leaves it vague enough that you can kind of read the game however you want, whilst not being too vague, for me anyway, to have like a disappointing and unsatisfactory story. I say it gets this perfect balance.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. one of the reasons I really like this game as much as I do is that by the end of it, it was. It's a strange thing to hear about this from like a horror game, which is meant to kind of upset you.
It's definitely psychological horror. More than, like,
Yeah.
jumps, a few jump scares.
Yeah. But I mean, at the end of it, there's something so satisfying about completing this game because it was a game that I completed over the course of about a month and a half. I kind of stopped it every now and then and came back to it, so it wasn't all very, very quickly. So I felt as well as having the journey that James goes on, you go on a journey yourself that takes a long time, and by the end of it, when it's over, there's like a relief comes over you. But it's not it's really strange. It's not a relief as in like, thank God this game is done. I'll never have to go back to it. I didn't like it. It was like I really, really had. Well, for me anyway, I had like a really, really great time with this game, and there was that. I mean, it's so exhausting, this game, and all of these words that I'm using normally are used with like negative connotations, but it's always good. I always like the fact that it kind of drains you because I always feel like you're going on this journey that is psychologically terrifying, and it is meant to have that impact on you as well as being a game that you're meant to just play for fun. Because I did have fun with this game. There are moments when I do laugh because Eddie's around, or there are moments where I do get mad if I didn't spam A enough. But those combination of emotions that come around, if they're subdued enough and you still have enough fun with the game, then you end up really, really liking it, and that's what I had with it.
I mean, trying to let the discussion about the sort of meaning of the game come through, but it's a bit. I would say, I don't know if I could fairly comment on that, just because I felt that through the fact that it was so uninviting, I was like, well, if you don't want me to play it, why? If the game doesn't want me to play it, why should I try and enjoy it, if that makes sense?
Yeah,
I don't obviously agree with that though. I mean, I thought that we were using that for a joke. I mean, I feel like the game obviously wants you to play it. I feel like the game wants you to kind of explore.
I would say that taking it as what it is, it feels like obtuse and like dragged out, and like the way that it is structured and the way that you experience the world is meant to always be reinforcing the themes of the game. I agree that it is focusing on some sort of psychological horror, some sort of narrative, but the fact that it just throws those onto the player and then says, now try and enjoy this game, try and work out what's going on, it just was like, well, I don't really like. The point that nailed this for me was like when I had finished the apartment, and I says, I finished the apartment, Harry says, the story starts now. It's like, well, the game has been so horrible up to this point, I've already made the decision to sort of not care about it, which is a bit unfair, because I was like, well, I just couldn't justify putting the effort in to understand it if it wanted to be so obtuse and so uninviting.
I think both things are true. That I definitely play up how kind of much the game hates you, because I find it funny, and also the fact that I think that we do with the podcast is essentially, it's a very strange beast. It's like a book club. That's the only thing to compare it to, really. And you wouldn't play like Silent Hill 2 unless you wanted to feel that. So you were in a very odd context where you were having to play a game which you didn't kind of want to be playing, which is a difficult way to kind of. So I do understand that, especially a game that's got the opening of Silent Hill 2. But like when it got past the kind of the apartment, and like even in the apartment, like what did you think of the kind of atmosphere and the story in general?
I appreciated it for what it was. I was like, this is a really like strong artistic representation of what it is trying to show, of the elements of horror, of the fact that you can't see anything, but just the fact that those emotions then translate onto the player of just like, well,
the gameplay.
On the gameplay of like, I appreciate. Like, it's the thing of like, it will so frequently, the camera is my biggest problem.
Oh yeah,
camera.
Again, we did mention this earlier on. That's very much like the what they call tank controls. This idea that to make a cinematic game, you have to have fixed camera angles.
Yeah.
And luckily, you can change to the 2D controls.
Yeah. Because like,
seriously, if I had stayed with those controls that I had originally throughout the entire game, then it would be like a 5 or a 6. The controls are awful.
Because for me, like, I appreciate what the camera angles were trying to do. In fact,
they don't really work. The fact that you can manipulate the camera anyway.
I appreciate, like, there are even quite a few shots where it's like, actually, if this were a film, I would probably be sitting back and really
enjoying this, but the fact that you have to move through these scenes in a way that just is really hard to wrap your head around, like spatially, it just constantly feels uncomfortable in a way that I'm just like, I would really rather not be doing this game right now.
Yeah.
Because for every moment of the story being interesting, of the characters being interesting, or seeing a cool design, there was the 13 hours of living with that camera that were just constant, like, I don't want to be here right now.
I don't want to do the From Software fan, like, oh, but the camera
No, it made
adds
me
to
think.
the
It
challenge.
made me think.
Yeah.
The Dark Souls camera is so good.
Yeah,
I love the Dark Souls camera now.
I don't want to do that annoying thing, but like, the fact that the game makes you feel uncomfortable, like,
Yeah, I get that that's the point.
Yeah,
I would
I mean-
understand that.
Two things. First thing, going back to what you were saying earlier about how it's obtuse, I think that's a really good way to describe it. And I think when Harry said it's inaccessible, that's true as well. But it's inaccessible
Slightly.
to the point. I feel like even though the story takes a while to kick in, from the very beginning, it doesn't push you away from Silent Hill. The game may hate you, or however you want to call it, but it still attracts you there. There is still some reason to go and investigate.
For
and
some reason was I need to finish this game because I'm contractually obliged to.
Okay.
It
Well,
was my like 4th session when I like found the apartment.
All
And I
right.
was trying not to use a walkthrough up until that point, and I was like, oh no. Because it feels really unfair, right? Because obviously all my scores that I ever give are of things that I have finished, right? Even Eromanga Sensei, which I give a 1 out of 10,
So
it was at least... No, alright, I'll
what
get
about
to
Dark Souls? What, would you be able to give that a score, not having completed the
yeah,
game?
but my point is that all the things I give a score to are the things that were at least things that I finished off my own volition.
Yeah.
This is just something where I would have. I can't really. It's
I mean-
hard to justify giving it a score if I didn't want to finish it.
but I
If
mean,
there are better things that I have just ignored because I'm lazy.
so the feeling you have now is the feeling I had with VA11, where I felt like I'd got the game, but I forced myself to get through it, and I probably liked it less because I forced
Yeah,
myself
but
to
in
get through it.
V11 you just hold the space bar.
Yeah, but
you
I
have
know-
to exist in
Yeah,
in
but-
a hellscape of purgatory for my sins.
But even then, you should still, even if you're contractually obliged to finish it because you're part of a podcast, there is always a reason to finish anything because it might turn around for you at the ending.
I suppose
Tony always.
I suppose that
Tony,
is true.
You know, you always.
I-
I'm not saying that the ending of Silent Hill made you like the game. I know it didn't or anything like that. But you always do say that the ending can always turn something around
Yeah.
for you, and that's the same for
That is
anything.
true. I would say that
And I feel like you can't rate
But
something unless you
there
have
is
fully.
that this definitely made me think. Like I remember ages ago reading a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon review, and an IGN person had given it a 6 out of 10, and there was the speculation that like, hang on, they just hadn't finished it, right? And they just had left that out of the review or whatever. And this made me realize, like, at some point, you have to cut your losses in a reasonable case. Like, I feel like it's like not even if everything can be turned around at the last.
Do you
end.
understand why I wanted you to finish it though?
Yeah, I
Is
do.
It's not like Halo where you get the game because like
it's not like
it's not until the twist comes in that you're kind of like it all like you kind of understand why you can see why when you pick the flashlight off it was that dress and why kind of all these
Yeah.
like little flashes of like the stuff that the game sprinkled with kind of fall into place.
I will give it credit that the ending and like the moments of the ending did like make me think of it more favorably. It's just that, and so yeah, I am glad that I did finish it, but it just does seem unfair that there are other games that are probably better that I just haven't finished.
Yeah.
And so
Not
I would.
better, but you would have liked more.
well,
All right, but it's
yeah,
not like
but
it's
when
not
he says
like I
better, he doesn't mean objective better. He
It's
means
not like
I
I.
know
It's
exactly.
not like I can speak from a point of objective,
Hmm.
capital G, truth, authority. Despite my wishes, I'm not a god, Ethan.
you will never be a god. Anyway,
Oh, man.
Also, I feel like I'm doing this podcast in the past compared to you because I want to go back and talk about the camera. I really like the camera in this game. I think there are scenes when I know
I'm
you're right,
in the
right.
middle of you two.
But I feel like there are some sequences, especially in the hotel, in the hospital, in the apartments, where you go into a room. No, that's not true. You go into a corridor, and the rooms as well. So corridors and rooms, and the camera starts by looking in front of you, and you don't see down the hallway or it gives you a bird's eye view, but it's only to a very specific part of that corridor or that room, and that helps you. Well, it helps build up attention because there's the unknown for the rest of that corridor. You go into a room in one of the apartments, and the camera starts on your face or looking at you, and then you switch the camera around, and it's such a quick sudden jump that you see this mannequin with a light around its thing, and it's just something that puts you on edge, and I don't know, makes you hold your breath for a brief couple of seconds. There's a great puzzle in, I think it's the Labyrinth or the Prison, I'm not sure which one. Yes, where there are 2 rooms, and it's the second room that you go into. When you go into, the camera starts right on your face or very close to being extreme close up. And then when you walk into the room more, it expands out. And I think having that jump from being on you to the entire room rather than just starting on as the room has more of an effect on you. Because you go into a room not knowing what to expect, and then suddenly, when you are shown what it is you're actually seeing, that's when the tension gets released, and that's what you want, rather than just going into a room and seeing what's in it straight away. And that's the other thing. That's another reason why I love this game so much. The fact that it won't be just every area that I've ever walked into from the beginning of this game, even if it's a large open area, there's always been some part of me that has, either held my breath or my heart feels like it's elevated a little bit, because I don't know what to expect when I go into a room. I don't know if I'll be faced with a puzzle or a new monster. And it's not just enough that I've had to walk into a room for the first time not knowing what to expect. Every time I go back into rooms that I've already been in before and have seen, there's still some part of me that's on edge, because there have been times when you go back into new areas and there'll be something new there. There'll be a monster, you might be in an alternate dimension where the same rules don't apply, and there'll be something else going on. And there's also the fact that you see monsters at the beginning, and then you get introduced to a new monster whose design is even scarier than the first one, and it makes you, and just the fact that you have this build up, this increase in how horrific the monsters do look, adds to that fact that you never know what you're going to expect. It's always going to get more and more terrifying from here on out. So it just builds that experience for me. And I know that you're someone who likes to go into things wanting to feel happy emotions, and I completely understand that. But for me, I enjoy having my day ruined more than I do having my day.
I'll say that.
Yeah, I mean,
Shameful. But you do see where I'm coming from, don't you?
Like, I mean, I always knew that, Tony, that you wouldn't like enjoying playing this old horror game.
I understand.
That's not like a critique of you. That's just
the appeal of the unknown, right? Well, I understand's a strong word, but I can see almost why people would like the idea that there's something literally unknown, like everywhere outside of my camera angle and outside the radius of fog around me.
Yeah.
But just moment to moment, like when I'm playing a game that is a game, I just think that the controls should feel natural. They should like come to you as you play it, and it just feels like uncomfortable.
Sure. That's that. But don't you feel? I mean, I don't think you will agree with this, but I get the impression that the game sometimes knows better than you what camera angle works better. And I'll use a moment here.
Yeah,
There's the part in the hospital where just before Maria dies, you see Pyramid Head, and it's because the way the camera is focused, the way that it's positioned, that you see Pyramid Head for a brief moment. And just that brief kind of flicker where he walks in a corridor that's just adjacent to yours that you just see because of the way that the game forces you to have your camera position, that's what adds to that scene. The idea of having this thing that you only see for a brief couple of seconds now chasing you, that's what adds to the terror.
But if you want to tell a story that's best told by having fixed camera angles that can direct your focus, then you can just make a film. And this video games, like, there's something just so it was just so like uncomfortable when I just couldn't look at something that was obviously in front of my character, and I just like I have to hold R3 and wiggle one of the sticks, and they were like the camera would do like an 180 degrees, like looking at the ceiling, and then twist around and look in the direction I want it to.
It's interesting that you say that, actually, because now it's made me realise how my opinion from films to video games is so radically different. Where with films I want to be able to take what I want away from it, and I want to have lots of interpretations able to be extracted from a particular piece of film. Whereas with a game, I kind of like things done for me. If the game knows what's better for me, then it has that.
Isn't the point of the game though the fact that you're playing it, that you're
getting
Yeah, you're
control
moving
and
the character.
feedback.
Yeah, I
Surely, so you're
definitely
controlling
think
the
it does work.
But I
well.
like linearity. I like having a goal. I like having a camera angle that knows what's best for me and that kind of thing. You're rubbing your temples. You don't see.
Yeah,
where
no,
coming
I'm trying to just understand. Like, I don't know, but
It definitely. I mean, if
I like. It's a weird thing to say, but I like less freedom when it comes to games. Yes, of course, I love having control of the character. I love going around killing mechs and stuff like that. And I do enjoy controlling James. I don't even mind the combat that much. But if a game knows what's better for it, then I do, and it does that.
when a
I don't have
game's
problem with
main
it, then it's
purpose
fine.
is to like tell a story, I feel like the linear approach is a lot better. I mean,
I would
With
say
all- with all
it
the-
does feel controlled.
But
it's
even when
just
the
that
stories are
I
piece of
wanted
shit,
to
I
have
still
that
like linearity.
control.
with the camera stuff, like I mean, I tried to say at the start, like, look, the gameplay doesn't. I mean, it holds up to an extent. It's not the greatest element. So if we could, I mean, that's kind of a given at this point. It's up to you how much context you give in and how much like leeway you give depending on how old something is. Like the fact that this thing is built of age design philosophies. If it was released today, I would probably look back on it less favorably than I do because it was released 18 years ago. Like that I mean, personally for me, that factors into the way I kind of see things. We probably should wrap up pretty soon, so I just want to very quickly list some great like little things
Can't
and
we
scenes.
talk about it for longer? There's so many. I feel like there's so many moments we've
Let's
missed
have a
out.
3-hour
Wait.
long podcast.
Let's
Why
come
can't we?
on, I need a haircut. Let's do some moments. So obviously the fact that the game's toilet obsession, I love the fact that it starts in a toilet. Just the sick, disgusting imagery of having to put your hand in like a decrepit, horrible kind of toilet. The fact that you spend your game in apartments and hotels and hospitals, room at least of the kind of main sections. I think I like the hospital less than the apartment actually, because it's so oppressive. And all these kind of horrible like bloody. The whole aesthetic is just rust and like age and
like grime.
yeah, like I really love that kind of disgusting aesthetic to it. The game's obsessed with kind of like disgusting imagery and just things that are kind of genuinely like repulsive, which like it doesn't have too much gore. It's more the kind of the idea of it. Also the elevators, all of the elevator scenes. So the scene where you're running away from Pyramid Head. And then Maria gets stabbed to a Pyramid Head in the elevator, and then obviously that music plays. I love that. I love the bit where you just get in an elevator and there's like a quiz, there's an announcer, and the game almost draws. Like I know you've mentioned James just doesn't react to things, but I love that. I love that this mad shit is happening and no one's reacting to it. Like there's just this lift with like an old time announcer asking you questions about how much flavor text you've read, or if you've played Silent Hill 1 if you're playing on harder difficulties, and just insane stuff like this. Like. You don't see it that often. I mean, you could argue there's a reason you don't see it that often because it's like, why would you? But I love how unique Silent Hill 2 is, and the fact that it is a sequel to Silent Hill 1 set in between 3, which is another sequel to 1, and then the studio kind of collapses. It's a genre which is all but dead. It's such a perfect time capsule of this incredibly unique vision that these people had and was somehow allowed to make. I don't know how they were allowed to make it, but they were, and I love that it exists. I love it for all its weirdness, for all its flaws. I think it's a very good game. I fully embrace that it's kind of it's got a lot of bullshit. Like, I mean, most criticisms of the gameplay are valid. I mean, I thought Tony would hate it, to be honest. I'm surprised. I thought he'd give it like a 2. So if he gives it anything above that, I'd be happy, because forcing him to play like an 8-hour psychological horror game, I never thought that would end well.
You do owe me.
So I am impressed that you finished it and that you see some merit to the kind of the story I was trying to tell. And also, final thing I'll mention, it's genuinely scary.
Yeah.
I I've decided to get into horror films a bit more because I appreciate the artistry and the things you can do with the genre. But rarely am I genuinely scared, and this game can genuinely scare you, which is very impressive. Like.
But that's the thing, right? This is the exact same reason why I feel like the second act of A Quiet Place isn't as good as the first one, because I feel like a lot of the game's scare factor comes from the unknown, coming from unpredictability, not being able to know what to expect. And with A Quiet Place, you have a monster who you don't see very much of, so you literally don't know what it is, and that's what's so scary.
Quiet Place
about
is basically a thriller, though.
Yeah.
All its tension is that knowing that someone's going to have to give birth in this scenario, and then like the kind of the action, you could argue, that's constructed around.
Maybe that's. I know. I feel like it becomes a thriller. I feel like the first half of the film is more horror than it is
Yeah.
thriller because there's not enough action happening for it to be a thriller. I don't think.
Yeah, Hereditary
That's
is like the other really scary thing I've seen. That kind of just like
Yeah.
is that's fuck you up scary. Like this
It's
is.
a freaky film,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah,
it's genuinely scary.
Oh wait, I might as well just give it a score after that. I was gonna give it an 8, but I'm probably gonna give it a 9 now. I think I'll give it a 9 because the way it's kind of tapped into my kind of thoughts and the way I've kind of not been able to stop talking about this game for such a long time. It's got to be a 9. I won't give it a 10 though because it's got too many things. It pisses me off too much to give it a 10. There's too many things that annoy me about it. Anyway.
Do you want the middle sandwich of negativity?
Yeah, you
Yes,
can kind
please.
of send me last because we for some reason we've been going for like an hour and 6 minutes. But we haven't actually said that much. It feels like.
Yeah.
So you might want
to be fair, I would credit that this is definitely like when I watched the
Silent
what
Hill
was
is
it called? The
beautiful.
Silent Hill is Beautiful video. I did see like, oh man, they're actually really. It's not just the kind of symbolism thing where you see people just sort of endlessly trying to rehash, like try and just reinterpret and put lenses over something. It felt like there was actually like a cohesive through line to this, all the decisions in this film, which I really I called it a film. I should tell you something. In this game, like that I could really appreciate, and so Harry called it weird, and I would definitely consider weirdness along with something like technical skill. It's one of those things that is just inherently has value because it's finite. It's hard to get weirdness. It's hard to get something that is this technically well made, and so it does remind me of back when I scored Her Story. If I was like, okay, the execution didn't appeal to me, but I can see what it was trying to do, and in this sort of weird metagamey way. If the people listening to this podcast eventually become game developers, I wouldn't want to say this is bad, so don't try and do things like this. I would say that it feels really hard because the criticisms I would make, I definitely accept the fact that like, well, you couldn't tell the story they were trying to tell without the game being the way it was, without being as obtuse it was. So in some sort of like artistic integrity sort of debate, you could say, well, it accomplishes its vision, so it's a 10, you know. Can you imagine if I left it there? But no, I do think it. But at the same time, like, even though I did 180 my opinion, I say 180, I did sort of 30-degree my opinion as I came to finish it. I do think it would also be unfair to play a disservice to the fact that, man, past me had like a really miserable time playing this game.
Yeah.
Like, just the contrast of, it took me like several months to play this 12-hour game, and I beat The Last of Us, which has similar themes. It still is about like this, you know.
Oh yeah, you could from Silent Hill 2. Can you tell why I was like worried that you're playing them back to back?
Yeah,
you'd hate The Last of Us because of Silent Hill.
Because The Last of Us, it has like it's a bad world, right? It shows you themes of like sadness, of like survival, of like horror, right?
Mm.
But it translates them into a way that doesn't repulse the audience member.
I mean,
as much. I know they're different things. I'm comparing apples and oranges.
What I'd say is
you are one person.
I
still
am
don't
only
think
one
that it
person.
pisses you
The,
off.
the
I
last
am not a collective hive mind of other people. I'm sorry.
No, but no. I'm not saying that's like a bad thing. It's not. It obviously isn't. But I feel like you are taking. When you talk about The Last of Us
Sorry,
having
I
this
just
world,
have too much of an authorial tone.
I don't mind. And I think
You should take my opinions with a grain of salt.
what I will say is The Last of Us they use the genre of the time to tell that story, and the same with this. This used the genre because survival horror was a weird genre of Resident Evil caught lightning in a bottle, and then everyone else was trying to mass produce that bottle, and this is the only other one that was slightly good. It's probably better than the original Resident Evil, to be fair, because that's not aged well. But and like I said, survival horror is shot off in two ways. It's shot off in the survival action gameplay, which The Last of Us is probably the master at, and the horror end, and which is like 8 games like Alien Isolation. So the games are very similar. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, I would just say that Harry's saying like if this game had been made now, it wouldn't have been as good. I think there are probably similar things now that actually, like, looking at like I don't like this genre name, but the walking simulator category of games. I feel like if it had
It's horror. I mean, horror is walking.
yeah, but horror also throws in a load of like arbitrary garbage stealth mechanics for most of the time. If it had just been properly like experiencing an environment, and also you had control of the camera angle, and also it didn't have pretty bad pretty bad action scenes
puzzles are
and
great.
kind of okay puzzles.
I love
Puzzles
it.
pretty good to be fair.
Hang on.
Yeah, some were quite nice. But I did try and solve myself for most of them. I would say like, oh man, there would be ways you could do a story like this, you know, in a way that I would enjoy it. But you know, I appreciate what it was trying to go for. I'm gonna say that it's hard to say whether ultimately I regret playing it or not. But the fact is that I did so, and it showed me some interesting things. And at the end, it's kind of too hard to hate when there's so much. When you see that spark of artistic vision through it, so you know clearly in your discussion of it of how nuanced you feel the characters are, and so you know I'll throw a 6 out of 10 on this bad boy.
That's impressive.
Which is a lot higher than I thought I was
Yeah,
going
I
to
thought
I
give
knew
you
it
were
was.
gonna give it a 4.
I think you said to me that it's between a 3 and a 6. So I'm glad we've ended up on 6.
Yeah, I might.
Be an interesting one when we do retcon too.
Yeah, I might just not feel charitable when we do retcon 2 and lower it, but you know,
I mean,
we'll see.
No,
fine.
it's important to me that you say that, because my worry was that when you were talking about The Last of Us having a world that doesn't repulse you away, I thought you were talking more as a collective thing, as that everyone would feel this way. But as long as you see why people would like this or have a good time playing this game, that's
I don't
important.
know.
That's
I
good.
mean, there might just be something about my brain that just the idea of like walking around a corner, the anticipation building of is there something there, and then the surprise of the camera shift suddenly, but then there isn't anything there in that release. It's like people say comedy and horror are like similar because they're based on timing and anticipation and build up and surprise, but this horror just, I don't know. I'll have to grow into it. It's like spicy food.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
like-
I'm
it's
glad
like
you're
Johnny
more.
Jacks.
I'm glad you're more positive than negative on that. That's.
Yeah, I just think
I'm glad. I wouldn't even mind if you lowered your 5 reached it, but just the fact that
Yeah,
you played it and you've done that. I thank you.
I mean,
I just
from
think-
hearing your review of it, I thought the 6 sounded really high.
yeah.
I mean, you said it was a
It's
game
just,
that you.
it's just
I mean,
like,
we were kind of waxing lyrical, so like, there's an element of devil's advocate to a podcast where if two people are praising something to the rooftops, you're gonna try and push back a little bit.
what was our classic thing if we would all just shit on a podcast and then give it an 8 out of 10?
That was when it was just for you and Johnny.
Oh, okay.
That was
Well,
before we had like a wider breadth of culture.
yeah, I think it is more. I think it is also an element of sure I would give something a 5 out of 10 if it just does the bare minimum of holding my engagement and being like an alright interesting story that is moment to moment like not putting me to sleep, right? But the world probably doesn't need more of that. Whereas if the world had more interesting things like this, which even if they didn't appeal to me specifically, it'd be kind of neat. You know, maybe one of them would appeal to me one day.
I mean, I am glad that there are very few games like this. I feel like if every game was like Silent Hill, then the world would be a very miserable
Yeah,
place.
I
For
mean,
sure.
like going off on like, what if we did all this crazy shit? You know,
It's
what
like
if we just had an abstract daddy? You know, what if we just did that? Like in the
It's
sort
like
of
favourite
broader
Fleetwood
sense, the broader sense of taking risks, which even though they didn't appeal to me, I feel like judging by intention, you know. Normally I don't do it, but you know, my rules never make sense.
very short question. Wait, shortest question. Do you think that if obviously the context of this being a game from 2001, if let's say a film from 2008 called Synecdoche, New York, tried similar things but didn't work for you, you'd still give it a similar score?
I mean, it's the thing of like, I think a lot of Silent Hill was also the fact that it was like hard, like I had to do something to get through it. Films like I could, you know, pause and check my phone if they're really bad, which means I don't like them. But you know, still, I don't know. We'll see with that film.
No, I guess a film does have the benefit of even if it feels like a drag, it's always constantly moving. With a game, there are times when you don't make any progress if you're just walking around trying to figure out a puzzle, but don't.
And those were like the real like experience-wise, those were the real like 3 out of 10 moments.
Yeah, fair enough.
Alright, Ethan.
Yeah, so as you've gathered, I really, really like this game. I completely understand why Tony doesn't like it. I honestly get that. But with me, I've always liked the horror genre. I always like the idea of, well, I mean, you go through your life and you experience all sorts of emotions, and sometimes you will probably feel terror at some point in your life, like genuine terror. But I like the idea of experiencing things that take you outside of your comfort zone or make you feel emotions that you wouldn't consider a lot of the times. And even if they are negative emotions, there's still a thrill there as well. Like I talk about, there is some fear factor in not being able to see what's coming a lot of the time. And I feel like this game doesn't just go by on really crap jump scares and, like Tony says, really garbage horror mechanics that you see a lot of the time. I feel like this game does have a lot of really interesting, like Ari says, psychological horror behind it, which definitely had an impact on me. The gameplay doesn't bother me that much. It's very inaccessible, and it's, if you compare it to a lot of games since, and probably around that time. I mean, Halo obviously has much better gameplay than this game. Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't bother me that much. And all of the flaws of it, all of the times where you walk into a room and you don't spam A enough, all of the things that make the games flawed.
Don't make me laugh my story.
all of the reasons why this game is flawed, I think makes me like the game even more, because for some reason I feel like it gives the game character.
I get
all of these dodgy moments. Do you see what I mean? Like I think
it's way more fun. It's like, it's such a weird thing. When you play it, you don't actually like it that much. It's very much in retrospect. Like, actually, that was really good. Like, and then when you think about playing it again, you're like, like no.
Yeah. I think the weird thing about that is that I could see myself playing Silent Hill 2 again, and I'm sure I will. But I'd much rather play the other games again, because I feel like Silent Hill 2, I've investigated the fuck out of it, so I know it very, very well. But also, again, going back to this, the whole idea of not knowing what's coming plays a huge part with me for this game. So the fact that I've already played the game, it will never have the same impact on me again, because I'll always know what's coming, especially if the game's still fresh in my memory. But yeah, going back to what I was saying, all of the flaws of this game, I think, as the fact that it's like a cult horror game, it has that cult feeling to it, which I really, really quite like, about it being kind of dodgy and not exactly patched up and not being, smoothed out. It is kind of, quite badly done at times, but I quite like that. I think I'm going to have to give it a 10 out of 10. I really, really feel this game is awesome.
Stop giving games I pick 10 out of 10.
This podcast, this game's only getting a 25 out of 40, so it's not like it was that good, guys.
I wonder if Jono will listen to this. What if we'll finish? Think we'll finish it?
No, he will finish it, I'm sure, but I just doubt if he'll listen to this podcast.
I don't like he'll give it a score as high as I give it.
Johnny, you'll be listening to this when you've already played it. So my theory is that you have this thing that I've talked about with you before, where you're very much, if the game wants you to, you'll do whatever you want in the game. Like if the game wants you to take a moment seriously, there's almost a contract between the player and the game that you're going to.
There's a contract that you can easily choose not to sign.
Yeah, but like if it's a dramatic, sad moment in the game, that you'll play it. You won't mess around. Whereas I feel Jono's very much like, he likes to push the boundary on games. Like if a game wants him to do something else, Jono's the type of guy who'll try and push the other way. He likes to experiment and have fun in his games. So I doubt he'll find a way.
This game is not a toy like sandbox.
Yeah. So I don't know how much he'll like it. I think he'll appreciate it.
Can I say one other thing?
Hope that's true, John. Sorry if I'd mischaracterized you.
In relation to the ending that I got, which you also said, I also got because I took time to explore the world and I found loads of objects and I read a lot of different letters and diary entries. I mean, that goes to show how far I was willing to go to look around this world. I mean, like I said, from the very, very beginning, I was attracted to Silent Hill and what made it function. Why were these people here? And I did take time out of the actual game to go and explore different areas and look at street corners. And I feel like, I mean, there's two things that you pick up that kind of reward you. And it is like diary extracts and pieces of paper with information on it. And they definitely make you learn a bit more about the history of Silent Hill, which is really, really interesting to read through. But you also pick up, ammo and you pick up health bottles and stuff like that. And it gives you incentive to explore the world a bit more. It's not just empty, I feel. So, I mean, I think you can play Silent Hill and think that it is empty and it's just atmosphere and ambience. But there are things that you can go around and pick up. And it just helps this world come to life, I think.
Yeah, that's well said. Should we
Thank you.
Wrap
And
up.
like my In the Mood for Love review. Hey.
Which is going to be 2000,
Yeah.
which we may have already recorded. All right.
Have we done that yet?
We've done half of it. We haven't done
Wait, do
Crouching
we
Tiger.
need to foreshadow the next podcast? Isn't that what we do?
Yeah, 2000. Ethan's doing it. What are you picking, Ethan?
I'm picking In the Mood for Love. A fucking great
All right,
film. Wouldn't
cool.
you agree, Tony?
Haha. We didn't.
Didn't I give it a lower score than Silent Hill?
We haven't seen it yet
Yeah, I
because
thought
it's
so.
the next
Didn't
podcast.
I predict that I might give it.
I think you
oh,
predicted that you gave it a 5 or something.
yeah, okay, I'll give it a. Oh yeah.
Just before we stop, I'm going to secretly say we got away. We're talking about this game for an hour and 20 minutes without mentioning the Eddie boss fight. Fuck.